everyone, and welcome to episode 250 of Fans of Power. I'm Joe Amato, and I'm here with my partners in crime, Tyler T-Rex Baker and Nasty Nate Nathan Kenny. And it felt good. I had to redo myself from last week, because last week I botched that intro because Nathan, I don't know if he was fucking with me or just trying to be serious, but he was like, Joe, your intro that you do, when Brian was on Fans of Power, he came up with that partners in crime, and I was like, fuck, really? And that's why last week, remember how I fumbled up, because I was thinking, did he say that? So I'm sitting there trying to think of a new intro last week. I fucked it all up, and I was like, okay, now I got to do what Tyler always says. I love putting myself through torture, so I went back and listened to starting on episode 1 all the way up, and then when I got to 25, I was like, nope, I did it, because it was me starting off, and it was just me and Tyler, and that's when I said with my partner in crime, Tyler T-Rex Baker. So episode 25 is when I tagged and I coined the phrase for the podcast.
I just picked a random one and heard him say it. And I was just like, oh, Joey's copying you. And then he got really upset with me. He's like, I gotta go back. I gotta make sure. I'm like, Joe, it's fine. We're 200.
I was like, no, it's not. I don't want to copy.
We are 250 episodes into this thing. I'm pretty sure it's yours now. I don't know why you were so worried about that.
Which I want people to hear Nathan's reaction to what he listened to, because he made a point to tell me like what he thought, as if I didn't expect anything less. But I still want people to hear Nathan's reaction to listen to the old days. But
go ahead, Nathan.
I'm kind of sorry if I'm seeming a little distracted. Things are like freezing up. So I was able to hear Tyler, but he was frozen, and then I'm looking there. So everything, maybe it'll all work. I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be strange, but those first episodes are rough. Like really.
Don't feel the need to be
really
polite.
Rough. You can hear it in Brian's voice. I'm sorry, Brian. I don't even know if he comes back and checks out
He doesn't listen to this podcast. He wouldn't know where to find us, even if he told him where it was at.
But he's just very spacey, and I know that I have adult beverages every week that we do the show, but Brian's on a whole other planet. He's on planet Stasiak or something, for all I know, because he's just. I don't want to be too mean. It wasn't good. So if you guys
I was always trying to watch how I talked, and I tried to.
Joe is really short with him too. You can hear it. It's like, yep, okay, and you're always trying to steer everything. You did the best you could. It is what it was.
Well, hey, we all did our best to put up with that bullshit for as long as we did, because I certainly didn't feel like I had a place to say anything until we were really going to get serious about bringing guests on, and that's when I don't give a shit. I don't care how much this guy gets pissed off. He's obnoxious and rude to Joe. He doesn't hesitate to cut me off. He rambles, and a lot of times me and Joe would deliberately not even discuss with him what we were doing because we didn't give a shit. Right. And we deliberately said, we'll discuss this, and we never included Brian on any of it. Even if we had told him in advance what we were doing, he wasn't prepared for it.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. You go back and listen to one of his contributions. Let's talk about Manny Weapons. Manny Weapons is not a character or a thing. It's Manny faces packed with a few extra weapons. That is it. Right. But he thought that was a conversation. Joe allowed me to just give my thought, and I said, it's Manny faces with extra weapons. And there was, okay, well, we'll be back after these messages. There was no discussion. He had nothing to offer on it, and it was his topic.
I'll
never forget that.
We bring all this up at the beginning, I guess sort of a roundabout way to plug. Link is down below if you guys want to go to the anchor.fm Fans of Power page and just go back and listen from the beginning. We're up to episode 130, which we're getting to the point where I'm on the show more often than not. So
that's when it became bad. And I was going to say,
when I joined the show. Oh, okay, Joe, I see how it is.
Oh yeah,
I'll send Ozone a message and be like, "Hey, you want to come back?"
He's like, "Do I?" His eyes are all glazed over, and he just falls flat on his face. And
well, first, let me acknowledge the people that I see in the chat room. I'll see the participants. I see 3 live stream: Adam Gabbard, Captain Chronic, Curtis Ackerman, Daniel Carhoonan, Fedmon, Grimbot, Jason Havlick, Papa Hud 69, Rebecca Cox, Sportimus, and Zen Brown. And if I missed anybody, I apologize, but I got the live participants I seen right there. There might have been comments before that, so but we'll always get you. Remember, stick around to the end of the show, and we'll get any of your questions. But also, one more plug, if you want to check the link to my T-shirt store, I upload. I always give Tyler, I like giving him shit about Stilt Stalker. Just, I always say, yeah, what a worthless thing that was. And, and in the comics, and I always just give him shit. But on the front of the card back for that, there was some beautiful art. Because remember, not all the Mega Laser and the Jet Sled, Jet Sled. Did I just say? Okay, yeah, and
of
course,
right. You got it right.
Yeah, it's like because they fucked me up with how they did things for classics. But we'll pass on that. But anyways, and of course, Stilt Stalker. That some had art on the front, some of the card backs didn't. None of mine did. But I was finally able to get a hold of a beautiful card front of that with that image, and there was no rips, no tears. I was like, now I can see everything, because usually the bubble rips half the shit. I'm like, I don't know what stuff looks like when I need to redraw this. I redrew the whole thing, colored, did enhancements, and I put that sucker up. I ordered it, Tyler got it, and yeah, the link to my T-shirt page is below if you want to check that out, or any of them, because I was like, I ordered one and Tyler ordered one, so I can't wait to get that hopefully by next week.
You know what? I may go ahead and order one after we're done with the show, because I like it when you do the art like that, like with Clamp Chap and Scareglow and Sarod, when you uploaded just the static image of those characters. I love that stuff that you do with those. Everything else
to get Joe
fine.
to do for a long time. And it's like,
Go
buy
what's
funny
one of
about
shirts.
the Stilt Stalker? Well, yeah, no, I appreciate it. And the thing about that Stilt Stalker image, I think if I would have had that on my, card back front when I bought that as a kid, it might have given me a different impression, because I had the nothing. And then when I turn on the back, you just look on the back and he's just standing there. And I think Beastman's there, or Skeletor. But I was like, God, does this look boring? Every time I see it, I was like, I just picture him just walking over water. But the one that has the image on the front, it's like intensity. I mean, He-Man's looking, he's like gritting his face. He's blasting with, the lasers and shit. It looks intense. I was like, that could have changed my impression of it. So it's weird how one piece, but we always say that the art masters of the universe is just as important as the toys, because that piece of art could have it seems so intense. Like I said, I think it could have changed my mind as a kid.
But I also, and I feel like this warrants at least a decent little discussion, because a lot of people will say certain things about He-Man are worthless, like certain characters or weapons and stuff. Stilt Stalkers, I don't think are ever depicted that well. Like, I think there was, I can't remember if it was Joe or somebody else had sent me a UK comic or a strip, and they're using the Stilt Stalkers to go over, like, lava.
I think that was me.
Yeah, it was you. And then Snake Attack, like, He-Man's using one panel to go through the swamp. Like, I feel like the card art doesn't depict it in a way that the Stilt Stalkers are using to avoid danger and still be able to attack if you need to. And McCarthy's artwork is unmatched, but it doesn't depict the Stilt Stalkers in a way that seems like, okay, this makes sense. If you're going to play with the Stilt Stalkers as a kid, this is what you need to imagine with your toys. And it's just a weapon I always found fascinating. I never knew much about. And Joe's, he's busting my balls about it, but I can't argue it because they're never depicted in the way that they were intended to. When you see the Mega Laser, it's a simple, shoulder cannon, essentially, with the targeting system. The jet sled is, a backpack or a jet sled that you can hold on to, like you see it depicted the way it should be. But Stilt Stalkers were always dismissed, and I that's why I always had this, like, affinity for things that are just not used that much in Hemo. It's just I love Clan Champ and Ninjor so much. Stilt Stalkers are another item I just want to know more about, because they were used very little. And I always want to take in, it's I have my own little orphanage for the characters, like Misfit Toys or something like that from Rudolph. Like, that's, I always felt bad for characters that never got used much. Lizard Man also, like, I want more of that character, and that's how I've always felt about it. And given the opportunity, if somebody was willing to overlook my acid tone towards how the powers that be, I would love to work Stilt Stalkers in a very logical and rational manner that people was like,
would have been great.
Fucking A, man, those things are badass. I gotta go on eBay and buy me something. $250, man. Fuck you, I'm not buying that. $240? I'll take it.
Can you just...
Nathan, how great would it have been? Because earlier, just to let you know, Tyler, your camera was just like expanding by itself, or I don't know if there was something Nathan was doing to change it, but I was like, oh my god, when he ranted there, Nathan, if his head would have gotten gigantic, oh god, that would have been perfect.
Yeah, I don't know why his camera just decides to take over the screen at various points of the show, but can you imagine if somehow Tyler got enough buzz about him that Mattel was like, all right, let's check this guy out, and they pick like one of the worst episodes where Tyler's at his angriest, and then they're like, yeah, about that, I don't think so.
Can't use this.
You would think that maybe at some point there'd be somebody at Mattel who's like, all right, you know what, this guy's willing to not just be a generic yes man and says all of our cheap head sculpts are sure they're great, sir. Can we please do some more? Like that they only just see someone who's angry and cussing all the time. Like you don't see the passion and the care that's something that this company has done. All this time ago, I've devoted so much of my life, my personal life, my money, and my thinking, my brain is all devoted to this property and celebrating it so much. And all they see is just angry as fuck adult who just can't seem to get over that it's just not his way or the highway.
He said something about
blah, blah, blah.
He said something about sandy vaginas. We definitely can't have that on our team.
Yeah, we're too corporate. We need a lot of yes men and say that our shitty decisions and our poor mini-comic choices and shitty artwork and bad stories, they're all great.
That kind of goes in a whole other direction, too, of like, I know we always go back to wrestling at this point, but you think about WWE and how Vince is. You know, he surrounds himself with those people who are just, oh, yes, sir, you're right. And no one wants to stand up and just be like, you know what, maybe that's a horseshit idea. Maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we should do this instead. Oh, goddamn, pal, I don't like that. You know, like, you gotta... I hate that corporate structure. It seems, and we have no, like, background knowledge on any of this, but it seems like back in the 80s, and maybe even a little prior, like, toy companies seemed a little more open to ideas. And we're like, oh, you know what? Here, I'll give this team this. What do you guys come up with? Whatever, do it. I always think about Big when they're sitting there having those toy discussions. It was so, like, loose, you know? It's like,
I don't get it.
I'm sorry, Nathan. No, what you just said, that came up today with the, I don't get it. I'm going to bring this up. You're talking about Toy Corporation or things. Grimbot sent me a picture, and it was something from Twitter. He said Mattel posted. I didn't think it was Mattel's account, but I mean, he said it might have been Mattel, but it was for Masters of one of the Masters of the Universe pages on Twitter, and something along the tagline of like, now it's winter. He'll have to correct me here in the chat room. I know he will. Something about, it's winter, and He-Man, the Origins figure, is sitting in a cup of hot chocolate, and I told him, I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Who in wintertime, what person, I mean, just picture this. He-Man is sitting in a cup of hot chocolate. That's the equivalent of us saying, you know what? It's wintertime. Let me get in a tub full of hot chocolate. I was like, so I told him, I said, I wanted to post a pic of, I don't get it, with Tom Hanks from Big. I said I was going to post that, but, he said, they weren't afraid to apologize back. Oh, he said, yep, Mattel's Twitter page. Oh, I was waiting for him to say what the quote was. But either way, you wonder, what are they thinking? Who thought that was funny? What's funny about He-Man sitting in a cup of hot chocolate?
Mattel did this?
Well, I mean, you got to think, like...
Yeah, he said it was Mattel's Twitter page. That's why, I mean, I don't get it. I was like one of the ones, like, I don't understand it. It's wintertime, but what the hell does sitting in a hot cup of chocolate mean?
Because Masters of the Universe fans that collected the toys when they were kids are now in their mid-40s or, like... mid-30s, early 40s,
and we think about sitting in a cup of hot chocolate
because it gets cold. Our joints start to hurt a little more because we're getting old. Fireplaces and
we don't want a fireplace. We want to sit in that hot cup of chocolate.
It just sounds like it's a really like very low key, below pedestrian attempt at humor, which seems to be a lot of the shit I see. Which is why I don't subscribe to any Facebook pages anymore that regard He-Man, because it's always somebody's trying to one up the other of the shitty white bread joke. We're using vintage He-Man, Origins He-Man, 2000X He-Man, Classics He-Man. Like, oh look, he's standing with his leg over his head. Wah wah wah. And it's just this. Really embarrassing attempts of
Well,
look at me, everybody. I posed a figure like this. Isn't it funny? I'm a funny motherfucker, aren't I?
There was the one video that I saw on Facebook that I thought was well done, where the kid's sitting there with the parents, and the parents are excited about playing with the Origins figures, and it kind of goes back and forth between switching with them playing with the figures and what they're trying to recreate. And the kid's not interested at first, and then he starts playing with the figures as well. Like, I thought that was pretty well done. They need more of that if they want to kind of hammer home that, oh, hey, you remember this when you were a kid? Get your kids to get into it too, kind of thing.
Yeah, but commercials like that aren't going to get kids today. Like, you need commercials that show the kids why these characters are badass. They have to be depicted with the cool backgrounds. Like, I could not imagine wanting to buy a toy I saw as a kid when I see the parents playing with it first. It's like the kids. They're not good. But the commercial is only going to make sense to us. That your 5-year-old is going to watch that commercial and not get it. Like, you're trying to be funny. Only the adults are getting the humor, and the emphasis should be on the toy. Like, why this is a badass toy, and why you should ask your parents and Santa Claus to buy this for you for Christmas.
All right. Well, let's put. Let's say you are the Tom Hanks character in Big, and you're like, I don't get it. I'll be the executive. Tyler, what would you do to? What commercial would you just do the throwback to the battle scenes and having all that, or would you take a different approach?
I would put all the emphasis on depicting, like, you have the people who make these backgrounds, like these forest scenes or castle scenes with smoke coming up around the characters and depicting He-Man is standing there, and you see, he's being approached by Skeletor, Evelyn, and Beastman, and there's Panther up on this rocky cliff knocking rocks down. He-Man's in for it. He needs help. Here comes Commander-Arms, and here comes Battle Cat. Who's gonna win the power of Grayskull? Find out. Get your own. Get yours today or something like that. Build up the mystery of these characters. Who's gonna fight? Do you think Skeletor's gonna win? Do you think He-Man's going to? Only you can decide that. Really amp up, just like with superheroes. Like, the visuals should sell the kids on why they want this. Those commercials that Nathan just mentioned, that's selling us and making fun of what's really going on, that the kids would rather play with the damn phone, unless they're introduced to this stuff. And you can't predict it. They may take it, they may not. I'll find out next weekend whether, I know Bryant likes He-Man, but I'll find out next weekend whether he really takes to the set of He-Man toys. I can't force him to do it, but the visuals of those toys should be more than enough to sell him on that, because he likes big, strong, muscle superheroes. Looking at He-Man should be a relatively easy sell, but there's no guarantee on that. A commercial marketing stuff towards kids should be nothing but emphasizing the badass. That's what all of us were sold. When we saw Turtles, of course, you might see hands moving the figures around, stuff like, and even the old 80s He-Man commercials have got kids, but they're trying to pretend like they are the character talking to the other characters. It's not about Dad is featured in a couple of them, very hokey too, as if like dads in the 80s were all a bunch of morons.
Well,
and even if you're going to do pictures, if it's pictures, do something that makes kids want to buy it, because I just had Nathan put it up. By the way, it said winter mode activated. That was the catchphrase for this picture. I look at that as nothing more than it's.
But how is this promoting to make it? It's just trying to be cute. That's all it is. It's Mattel trying to be cute.
No, it's just it's hitting.
Room. What do you guys think of that? Winter mode activated, and you see this to promote whether it's winter or Origins or anything. What does this even mean?
It's just something to promote to the older fan that has grown out of collecting toys and is into the comforts of life, and it's wintertime. Get your blanket, sit near the fireplace. It's just that kind of thing. Go watch a Lifetime movie.
It's not really supposed to be thought of too much, but when Mattel does it, it sounds like they're trying to, just like you go to any social media page, someone is trying to be cute and funny with the He-Man figure. Joe, you're guilty of this shit too.
I do it all the time. I'm having a blast. And before we get into our good memories, because the memories is going to be our last topic, we're going to talk about that. We want all you guys to give your memories as well. But we're going to now get into our top 3 worst 2000X figure variants. And I can let Tyler start off. I had a lot in my head, and I was thinking, I'm not going to be doing, at least for me, I don't know what Tyler did, because again, we don't know who did what and what said, said. But I'm not doing any of the color variants. Like, I didn't include, like...
I didn't do that either.
like that was easy. I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that, or the blood, or the disco, or anything. I was like, I'm just gonna pick figures that really I looked at and I was like, well, again, I don't get it. What's this? What does this fucking mean? But we'll start off with Tyler, then me, then Nathan. Go at number 3 to 2 to 1, and I'm curious to see whatever we pick.
Guys in the chat room and those watching this after the fact, you will be excited to know that Joe and Tyler have 2 completely different lists this week, so it's going to be fantastic.
I told Nathan, I said, I think I'm going to go in such a different direction because I was like, I don't want to pick anything I think he might do, but plus I was going to go with a lot of the crazy-ass snake variants, but I was like, you know what? I don't know if he bought those snake variants. I don't know if he got this thing or that, so that's why I'm curious. I can't wait to see, but I'm glad we picked 2 different sets, but it shows that, yeah, they had some crazy ass variants.
It was really bad. But go ahead, Tyler. Give us your number 3.
I actually, when we did this too, like I went back just to look at them all. I had forgotten about some of these shitty things.
I bet you did.
I did, and I had bought damn near. There's a few that I didn't own. Mainly because the Snakeman figures were not available in retail here. Like they were available overseas, and there was a certain store. I was told that you could get them at retail there, but I had to order Fisto, King Hiss, Cobra Khan, and Ratlord.
Hey, wait, you mean Battle Fist? You mean Battle Fist, Tyler?
Oh, I'm not acknowledging that happy horseshit name. I don't give a shit what George Lucas did. Like for Mattel to not come up with anything more clever than that, they need a good swift kick in the nuts multiple times till the nuts come out the throat, Hot Shots Part 2 style. So. It was like, oh my god! And then I had my list set, and I went back and looked at it again. I'm like, oh my god! Like, I have to include those. So number 3 is Battle Glove Man at Arms, which is the same fucking figure with 2 new weapons, and they thought it'd be cute and clever and efficient to issue the same damn figure with 2 new lame ass weapons. And even at that time, I bought it because I was just like, I have to buy everything because I don't want to miss out on what I did in the 80s. And even at that time, I'm like, it's the same figure. Not even a color scheme, nothing. It's the same figure with 2 new shitty weapons. It was, it
was lazy. It gave me
it goes against everything that I have against Mattel. We're just trying to, and Super 7's guilty of it too, of just finding the cheapest way of issuing the same damn figure. And I'd forgotten all about that. And I revised my list last night because Nathan asked me to send his list. And I was like, hold the phone. I'm like, oh, that piece of shit's going on my list. Like, I really had just meant it was just going to be He-Man Skeletor variants, but that had to go on.
By the way, I messaged Joe yesterday around like 7, 8 o'clock. I'm like, Joe, can you give me your list? Nothing. Fucking crickets. Wake up this morning, and he was like, oh, yeah, here you go. It took me all night to think about this.
Well, he had to take his wiener out of his hand because he can't type with one hand. So
right, see? I always feel like I'm just...
That's why he sends all those voice messages to us. You can do that with one.
Yeah, you got it. Exactly, because it's, well, yeah, but okay, well, there's Tyler's.
It's kind of like a kid in a safety blanket. Like, he doesn't feel comfortable, like, unless he's walking around with it. And he's like Jimmy and the Wizard. You know, he's saying California, but no lunchbox. He's just got his dick in his hand the whole time. And Nathan is like Lucas, you know. We don't want you to whiz on someone, then Joe just looks at him and just starts pissing on him right there, you know.
Well, before this thing falls apart, here comes this, you know, like I said, as we're talking about a lot of these, I mean, even ones you're talking about, I know they like getting real tech heavy with this stuff, and everything seemed like it had a similar kind of and it felt similar. But I got to one that feels so damn cheap, and I don't know what the hell they were doing. And that's Snake Armor Skeletor. This fucking thing. I mean, it came in a 2-pack, but I mean, you get this sword that I'm like, what the fuck is this sword? He has a stupid ass armor. It looks so cheap with the plastic, and then you get this shield that's so fucking big and heavy that you can only pose him when he's leaning back, because if he tries to stand forward, he falls. And here's the great gimmick, as you popped on me to see, but the great gimmick is like, oh, you hold it, and then, oh, wow, spikes come. But I was like, what does this mean? What does the stupid ass sword, what does it fucking represent? This is horrible. I hate this fucking figure.
And the headpiece looks goofy as hell on him.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like all this extra snake side crap. It's too busy and really cheap looking. So yeah, this is My number 3 is this godforsaken fucking thing. This snake armor Skeletor.
When I started to devise my list, because I had already looked at the figure checklist when we did our best of last week, and when we decided we were going to do the worst, I had to go back and look at it. And then when I got your guys' list, I was like, yeah, that would probably come close. This would be on here. I also sort of went in a little bit of I want to also, before I give my number 3, because we're mainly doing variants here, but I want to give an honorable mention to Buzz Off, because I think that figure looks like shit as well. I know what they were trying to do, make him more insect-like and everything, but he just looks so scraggly and shitty looking.
Buzz Off? Oh, I love Buzz Off. I love that.
Man, that's sacrilege, dude.
I don't like the look of that figure at all. But my number 3 is Mecha Blade He-Man. I'm like, what are they trying to do here? It's so gaudy. There's so much shit going on. It's like he looks like a spider. And I'm looking at this from a perspective of, if you're a kid playing with this toy as well and it's got so much stuff on it, what's that kid probably going to do? Take a lot of that stuff off, right? Because it's just too much going on. And this will also tie into my number 1 as well, but it's just so much stuff. It's so much bulk, and I'm like, what?
You know, many people didn't even have that, because I couldn't remember if that was another one of those hard last ones, the international crap. But the Mecha Blade, and I think Skeletor's might have been Mecha Crunch. I might be wrong, but it's just,
gives a shit.
Yeah, and it's just, God, it's half of these, like you said, when you take off the armor, it's like just stupid underneath. Some surprisingly actually had cool details under their armor, but the majority, it's like, okay, let's just take He-Man and Skeletor and put so much shit on them that you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they missed the point of the whole variant stuff anyway. And Nathan's is a prime example of like, what the hell are you guys thinking? Like, they don't need this much shit. Yeah. You know, like the battle armor, He-Man and Skeletor, which should have been called battle armor. I don't know. They should have been called, Gundam He-Man and Gundam Skeletor.
With Mecha Blade He-Man, was this anything that was ever in the NYP cartoon?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
The
vast majority of the variants were never featured.
Yeah.
Like I was, which we kind of thought like we might see some of them, and we did. But Ice Armor He-Man was probably the only variant that we saw that was like, okay, that made sense, and it looked cool.
Got those goofy ass samurai ones in there too that you just want to ignore. It's like, what, 3 of them? He-Man, Skeletor, Man at Arms, all got that.
And the Battle Raptor and Samurai Battle Cat.
Yeah, which unfortunately I own that one because I couldn't find a regular Battle Cat from that line. It's still in the box in my parents' house. If you guys go on the channel and find like I think it was 3 videos that I did where I was digging through totes and boxes up in my parents' attic, you'll see that some of those variants I did buy. I don't know why. I really don't know it.
We bought everything though. That's what we did. If it was something we didn't know, and that was my goal, was like I missed out on getting the stuff in the 80s when it was brand new, at least most of the 80s, not all of it, but I just did not want to repeat that. And I'm like, this toy sucks or this variant sucks, but I'm going to buy it. Like, I'm going to buy the flight packs. Are they great? No. And I convince myself, yes, they are, because it's new. You got to buy it. Oh, man.
And not to mention, Tyler at one point, I think, had like all of those displayed on card. Like, didn't you pegged most of those on the wall, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, when we lived over in Fairlawn, that entire it was the side, the walls was my room. In the entire room, I had all my carded figures of 2000X, all on the wall, all of my golden books, all the magazines, all the comic books, all the mini comics were all in frames. The posters, Earl Norman's posters, were all on the walls. My movie posters, the entire room, all 4 walls, width of the house, was all He-Man, and I just, And I remember when I moved into that house the first time, Nathan came over, I think the first or second night, and was just there kind of supervising, like helping me put stuff up. Like I even had a ladder. I was climbing a ladder and putting stuff up.
That was a big-ass room. That was a really big fucking room.
It was. I was pretty proud. Not too many people saw it, but it was a fun room to display all that stuff. And 2000X, every bit of it was on display.
Let's get to your number 2 shitstorm.
Oh, well, that would be Snake Hunter He-Man. I like Snake Armor He-Man. I think it's a great looking variant, but Snake Hunter, because it was so bare bones and just it looked like such a pussy variant of He-Man.
Well, but he came with a great net, though, didn't he? He came with a fantastic net.
Have it. It was
Which,
just like...
I do want to specify the image that I have on here doesn't have that net thing on his back. It's just sitting beside of the figure itself. So, Joe, why are you already putting your?
No, but I was gonna try to get it for you to show that goofy ass net.
Hold on. I mean, they can see the net here. Just imagine that.
You don't have to run the risk of exposing yourself. We don't want you running the risk of exposing yourself.
And there would go the tablet, because Tyler's like, let's see if we can go another episode without dropping that tablet. And it would have probably happened.
Joe's flopping the bishop ball in his hand. It goes out of control like a fire hose out of control. And we get semen skid marks on the screen. Like, oh God. It's Christmas time.
It was close. I'll tell you what. I almost picked that Snake Hunter. I almost picked it. I went with a different He-Man, but it's funny because my number 2 is another horrible, but it goes hand in hand. It's the wolf armor.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, it's great. You got armor, goofy ass weapon, this stupid ass wolf thing, and another. Like I said, this series of this 2-pack. It's probably the cheapest feeling and looking, especially when you hold it, of all their goofy ass variants. Because again, here's another shield with. They were so onto this fucking spike image or this gimmick where you turn things like, oh, that's fantastic. But again, what does it mean? What the fuck is this wolf armor? Where? I just hate it. It's not in the cartoon. It's like it absolutely looks out of place. That snake, like you said, I know of course the snake and all this shit, but this snake armor Skeletor looked completely out of place. But the wolf armor He-Man's just, God, it's even worse. I mean, that 2-pack
I've never dug that much because I've always dismissed the variants as mostly just fodder. But I would always want to know how much the Horseman had in the creation of all these variants. Like
I bet they had nothing to do with these two. I bet they didn't have anything to do with those two. I hope not, because it doesn't look like their work at all.
Well, yeah, a lot of them. Like I always assumed like Jungle Attack He-Man, because it was the only variant that I think initially was displayed when they brought the 2-ups out, and I thought like that was a pretty badass variant. Like, is it logical? Probably not, but He-Man kind of looking like Rambo or like Conan.
He looks intense. He's screaming
with
he's ready
the headband and the body paint on there. It was very reminiscent of Conan the Barbarian when they're invading Thulsa Doom's orgy chamber. And I just always thought that was and with the bow and arrow, like Rambo He-Man, like that. It's not a very far-fetched idea, and I would have loved to have seen that incorporated into it. But all the other variants that came along just look so damn goofy. I mean, you had a few along the lines that were like Ice Armor was cool, and that's really about it. Oh, I always refer to him as Battle Armor, but Battle Sound He-Man, which should have been called Battle Armor, because it was very reminiscent of the Battle Armor.
I've said it all the
That
time.
looked great.
Both of those. Yeah, that should have been. But later we get Battle Armor that looks nothing like what Battle Armor is like.
Piece of shit episode of Machines and Men. What a shitty episode that was. I haven't seen it since its air date, and I don't intend to.
Good man.
Nathan, what's your number 2?
Speaking of my number 2, Jungle Attack He-Man. How about that?
Tell us how many you don't like it, though.
Because it is fucking lazy. Other than the face, it's basically like, here's a He-Man figure with some little green triangles drawn on him. Give him a couple of different weapons. It's fucking lazy. That's my number 2. So it was hilarious that you're sitting there talking about how great it is. And I'm like smiling the whole time because I'm like,
The one thing, just to say,
yes.
Nathan, real quick, not to cut you off, but the one thing I didn't like about the figure myself, even though, yes, it looks like he's in a war cry, I did not like the pose he was in. It was so awkward.
Bad.
Which was
yes, the pose was very bad.
Pose. But otherwise, I got a kick out of his look and design. I just wish he didn't have that pose, because when I got those China variants that I told you about, last week or the week before that were even bigger, they actually have that variant in big size, and he's completely in a pose. He's not in that angled pose. He's in a regular pose. So I was like, oh, the China version got it cool with being oversized, but this weird. I hear more of why you didn't like it, Nathan, because it's. I can see what you mean.
The concept behind it, like Tyler was saying, I get it. I'm gonna have to adjust his camera again while I'm talking. Oh, there it goes. The concept, the idea, I understand, but I picked it as my number 2 just in terms of the laziness. You talked about Man-at-Arms, and it's basically that, and they gave him 2 extra weapons. To me, it's like, all right, a different face sculpt And then they just put little green lines on him and gave him 2 extra weapons. Like, that was just incredibly lazy to me. And that's the problem that we ran with all of these variants. It's either lazy or it's just too much going on. They couldn't find, and Tyler said that before, like with Ice Armor, that one actually looks pretty good. But it's the simplicity in it. But this was almost just too simple for me.
Well, and I get what you're saying, and I remember it being like a big peg warmer for a while too. Like that was one that you'd find before the Smash Blade Spin Blade came out. That was the peg warmer I remember seeing was Jungle Attack. I remember it was not a hard figure to find. I mean, and I can't dispute that because I know what it looks like. I have, even though I have any of my 2000X stuff on display, I remember what they all look like. The pose was bad. It was pretty shitty, and there isn't much to it, you know. And I still, you know, I would go further and say, yeah, it's a great concept, and could it use more? Sure. It probably even more so, much like how Conan and Subutai and Valeria had like full black and white body paint on their face and their body. There needed to be more of a motif on He-Man's body, I think.
That would have worked. But it's incredibly lazy. I can't stress that enough. It's just like
I get that. I can't like Buzz Off. I will argue on, but Jungle Attack. You know, I mean, I get it. I do.
I mean, you know, Buzz Off looks like the cartoon, but I just don't like the look of that. He's just too.
We all have our Stratos. Nathan. And
no. Some of us don't have that at all, Joe, because we embrace all the heroic warriors running an asshole.
Dear
and
God,
say, you can't come to my party. Joe's like that little bratty girl in Problem Child. Like, I get to decide who comes to my party and who can't. You know, that's Joe. Thinking he can shove Stratos out there.
Horrible figure in Vintage Line. So what's your number one, Tyler, buddy, old pal?
I had Shield Strike He-Man on this list. Snake Hunter was always going to be number one, but I couldn't find a Skeletor that I was just like, Joe's Snake Armor Skeletor, yeah, that's goofy as shit. The bright colored, multicolored Skeletor, like it's just a dumbass color. That's it. But for me, number one, because it has continued in various other toy lines to be hyped up, is this. Oh my God!
I know what you're gonna do. Wait, let me guess. Are you gonna say Battle Glove He-Man because 2 big fists? Oh, okay, go ahead. Okay,
no.
All right. I was convinced that was it, or whatever it was called.
Snake Man at Arms.
Another Man at Arms, huh?
I always put Samurai Man at Arms because I'm like, why the hell do we have variants of Man at Arms? Period. But the way that 2000X was hyping up that storyline of like, oh my God, he became a Snake Man. What are we gonna do? Oh, kids, shit is on me. It just got real. Even though we saw Mechanic, Tila, and Man at Arms all turn into a snake in Second Skin in that other shitty episode. And you know what? They all turned back. No big deal. And knowing that, oh my God, we got the last script. Man at Arms turns back into a Snake Man. He's part of the Snake Man. Holy shit, man. Like, what are we going to do, man? Just, I can't get enough of it. I'm like, why is this such a big deal? And then Nightly decides to bring, oh my God, man, this is a great chance to be cheap and bring back this great idea. And I remember Danielle questioning that on Roast Schoolboy, like, why the hell are we getting this figure? And I was like, thank God, finally, somebody is challenging the authority on this shitty decision. And I'm like, why? And then Nightly puts it into the fucking mini comics. It makes Clam Champ talk like, come on, man, I don't want to have to do this, yo. And impales Snake Man at Arms with his power pinch. It's like, he doesn't know how to write any black character. And it's continuing to emphasize that Snake Man at Arms is a big damn deal. So because of all the emphasis put around this Man at Arms becomes a Snake Man. Who gives a shit? You know he's not going to die. It's no big deal. It's like a cold.
None of the Man at Arms variants, none of them were good at all.
None of them were. And I have had such a visceral hate towards Snake Man at Arms because of its pushing classics and in Nutless mini comics and in the 2000X. Like, this sucks, man. So,
well, speaking of sucks, I didn't mention anything about Stratos because, believe it or not, I liked Stratos.
Well, Deucey called you out on it before. That way you didn't pull that shit.
No, I've always said I liked his platoon. I mean, his voice with that Sean Connery thing, it wasn't my cup of tea, but I did like his design. And as for the figure, it looked cool. So I didn't pick that. But as for mine, another mess and just overuse of just shit is this Serpent Track Mechaneck. It's like, this thing on his head drove me fucking bananas. And then this oversized, here's the giant claw thing that everybody had to get that. It's like, just... I can't explain how not just lazy, but I mean, this wasn't fun. It's nothing about that look good. It's like anytime it seems like when they do these extra. I mean, if you notice, it's weird that snake armor Skeletor showed had the extra thing on the head, and this just it's like too much. And for this, I don't picture Mechaneck using any of this to get intense and get into battle. It does not look like it's his character. Of course,
that's the first time I've ever seen one of those opened up. Like
shit. And look at the close-up on this fucking head thing. It's busier than fuck. It really is. Look at that. Doesn't that even look cheap as hell? Just that fucking attachment at the top. It
just looks so unnecessary, especially knowing that how the Snake Men are portrayed in the cartoon. Like, they didn't need any of this shit to fight the Snake Men. You guys are acting like it's the damn apocalypse, and they get beat in the second episode.
Just picture this, the logic of this on your head. Who's going to fucking run with this rocket launcher on their head? I better get my one.
I mean,
he would always Superman up Man at Arms in the show. I'm surprised they didn't do that to some of these characters, where it's just like, oh, man, he just whips out all this crazy stuff. Like, oh, come on, man, whatever.
And Nathan, what do you think about the extra head attachment?
I mean, well, you're talking about him running. It would seem like that claw would be heavier than shit, and he would immediately just fall over, you know?
All the weights on this side, too. The claw and this, I'm surprised.
And it doesn't look like that claw fits the character. That looks like an evil weapon. Like, that doesn't look like something a heroic... It looks like a Terminator / Freddy Krueger claw.
And which is why the Stratos one that has his, because I couldn't remember if it was Claw Attack, Stratos, or whatever, I didn't mind, because I pictured that being a big talon for Stratos. I was like, okay, you know what, Stratos? That works. And that's exactly why I didn't pick Stratos. But this is why I did pick Mechaneck, was this claw and this fucking moronic gun on his head. So that's my number one of the worst variants of this piece of shit.
And people in the chat were like, let's see if Nathan goes for another He-Man so he can get He-Man tic-tac-toe going on over here. And while, yes... This is a He-Man variant. It also came in the variant of Skeletor and Man-at-Arms as well. You want to talk about busy? My number one. Samurai He-Man. Samurai Skeletor. Samurai Man-at-Arms. What a goofy fucking figure. Like, if you're going to go the samurai route, it doesn't need to look like this. You could give him a sword and give him some different battle armor, but he doesn't need to, like, have stilts on that set him up a little bit higher. It's bullshit. I look at this and I'm like, that is the stupidest looking figure in this entire line. I know that they use the samurai stuff in NYP, so I guess
it doesn't mean it was great.
You could, I guess, give it a pass for that. But look at this thing; it's goofy as shit. Like with Skeletor,
he's on a mini version of Stilt Stalkers on his feet or something.
Yeah.
It's just,
but it's like what in the vintage line when they came out with that. He's up off the ground way higher than this. He's off the ground, what, maybe a foot, 6 inches? If we're going in, like, realistic terms. Why does he need that?
Well, every inch, every
bit helps. Did they give that a purpose in NYP?
I mean, hell, even, you look at, like, classic samurai footwear, it's, like, a few extra inches off the ground. Like, with the straps, like, wooden blocks they would wear on their feet. I don't recall seeing. I mean, I'm not a Japanese, history enthusiast or anything like that, but I have never seen any samurai in pictures or in movies where they're wearing shoes that resemble stilts. It just looks like they just got out of control with the design there, and even though, like, we saw it in the cartoon, like, you say, hey, it's the samurai figures, but that's about it. It was not impressionable. Hell, when the sorcerer sees that image of Samurai Skeletor coming out of the water, I thought it was Monstroid, because you see this black top and these red extensions that look like legs. Like, holy shit, Monstroid coming out of the water! Like, no, it's Samurai Skeletor coming out of the water. Like, oh my god.
And a point to be made about these variants, because again, there are some that are cool. We understand why companies do it, but sometimes it's over the top. But here's the thing. We have an episode we'll be doing in the future of our top 3 variants that we'd like, but it's the reason we did this is just to kind of stress it to companies. You don't have to do so many. We understand budget-wise why you have to do some things, but you know what? There is a limit, because when you start getting overstock of so many variants, it just clogs the shelves. Things don't sell well. Those stores think nobody wants them, and then lines can go away instead of getting, original characters. So it's like, think of the original line. We got like 1 per wave. When they started doing it, you get a variant 1 per wave. And look, what do we get? A total of 4 or 5?
Back then it was 1 per year. We got 1 variant a year.
And that's good, because this, we got literally over 20 He-Man variants and 17 maybe Skeletor. And here, quickly, I want to say, if whoever's in the chat room, the one that left the dislike, which that's fine. You can leave dislikes. We welcome that. I hope, if you're still here, could you mention why? It's like, do you like every variant? Is there something that we didn't like that you like? I'm just curious, because again, I don't care if somebody dislikes what we have to say, because you're welcome and open to that. But I'd love, hopefully, if they're here, I just want to see why, though. That's what I always love knowing is, what didn't you like? Did you like every variant and it upset you that we don't like all of them? But you could say it. It's just, no, there's some shit, but then there's great shit. But not everything is fantastic. You cannot have anything where every single thing is perfect. There's always going to be something bad. But
I will say this, too. Another thing that the variants that the Adventures line got right is that they didn't stray too far from the actual character itself. Thunder Punch, Battle Armor, and Flying Fist didn't look that far-fetched from the original He-Man. When Kenner starts blasting out so many Batman variants with the movie toy lines in the Batman animated series, I didn't want any of them because it didn't look like Michael Keaton or Kevin Conroy's Batman on the animated series. Like, he didn't wear any of this shit on the show. I want the original Batman that I see in the cartoon. I want Michael Keaton's black outfit with the yellow emblem. And you get all these goofy variants, and even though you may have been given them to you as a birthday present or Christmas present, you're glad to have it. But at the end of the day, I want what I see on screen or what I expect this character to look like. Thunder Punch He-Man looks great because it looks not too far from the vintage, from the original He-Mans. Same thing with the Skeletor variants. All these variants we talked about, like, they are either really obviously very cheap and you guys weren't trying very hard at all, or you got so damn busy that you put no logic behind these variants. As much as Smash Blade and Spin Blade were clogging the shelves and people always associate those 2 variants as like killing the line, I thought it was reminiscent of Flying Fist. The color scheme looked cool, and it was He-Man's sword with a new blocking weapon, reminiscent of the Flying Fist. It was cool. It was simple, and same thing with Skeletor. A new color scheme with a weapon that spawned to kind of block. It was simple, and it was the same character. Like, he did not stray too far from what that character should be. This Mecha Blade bullshit, Battle Armor bullshit, and Power Punch and Mega Fist He-Man, and just... they're just goofy as hell. I mean, even like
3 Live. I was going to say, I'm sorry, Todd. I just want to make a point. 3 Live Stream in the chat room made a good point. He said nobody picked the same figure. He said that's saying there was a lot of trash, there was a lot of good. But no, he brings up a good point. You'd think if there was only a couple of the variants that we didn't really like, all 3 of us probably would have had at one point that same thing. And again, this is not stuff that me and Tyler knew. Nobody picked the same character. So that's 9 variants. That's, like I said, we just weren't a fan of.
And you got to think that, like, for every one of these He-Man variants, there is an equal Skeletor variant of the same name as well. So a lot of that would kind of, like with Samurai He-Man, I picked that image because the Samurai Skeletor is probably the least offensive just because it worked better with his color scheme. But Man-at-Arms and He-Man, fucking terrible. I mean, Skeletor's fucking terrible too. But yeah, so there's more than just
Ice Armor He-Man looks great. Ice Armor Skeletor does not.
Yeah,
I was just taking the fire armor and just turning it a different color, right?
It doesn't look right on Skeletor either. Like, and not to mention, we got to have every He-Man has to have the equivalent of Skeletor having the same. Like, no, you don't get it. Like Dragon Blaster Skeletor was not Thunder Punch Skeletor. It's even though we had Battle Armor Skeletor, Battle Armor He-Man. I like that. I'm cool with that. But after that, the variants were drastically different. Terror Claw Skeletor was different from Flying Fist He-Man.
Yeah, and I think that was a quick take of just like, let's just reuse that same mold and make it into a ice color to do that for Skeletor. Because I'll admit, for the Fire Armor Skeletor, I thought it was fine. I was like, that's different. It's kind of cool. The flames on his
it's okay, but I look at that and I like when we look at all these. Let me ask you guys this. You know, obviously we saw the Battle Sound Skeletor, which he eats the ambrosia, and then Triclops and Evelyn have the same look. Do you see any of these variants that were not featured in the show? And we only had, I think, just Ice Armor, Samurai, and that was the only two variants we got. The battle armor with the big, robot bullshit they were wearing. Like, do you guys see any of these other variants that you didn't pick on the list that you did like or that you didn't like, and you're surprised you didn't see that in the show, or that you could easily see that used in the show?
I would have to. I would have to look at the list. I would have to look at the list again, but
there is a lot. I mean, there was some, like I said, I'm sure could have been used. Like, for example, when I was talking about the Fire Armor Skeletor, like I said, it works for Fire Armor, but when they just figured, okay, let's now make it ice, they didn't change anything to an ice design. It's the Fire Armor design, but now clear blue. So that made zero sense. But, I mean, if there was an episode where Skeletor got flamed up some crazy shit and then had these two swords he pulled out and were on fire as he was fighting, because that's what the figure can do, I was like, okay, could be cool. But, I mean, so many of them, it's like the snake armor, unless it went in a whole different, if they redesigned the hell out of this, got rid of the goofy thing on the top, made a different sword, maybe it could have been okay. But just as it stands here,
see, that itself too should have been a tie-in with the Snake Men.
Right. So everything's just different about it. This sword that could have been a mystical sword that he had to get, and it could have made sense. But does this look like a mystical sword you'd see in the show? It's like I couldn't picture that as being a design, or this armor. And then like with the Wolf Armor He-Man, for what? Why does he need to be in wolf armor? He's the most powerful man in the universe. What does that mean? So, yeah, some just, are mind-blowing to think, God, I'm glad it wasn't in the cartoon. And unfortunately, the ones we got in the cartoon, they've got as toys, okay, you have to live with it. But thank God we didn't get all of them, because like I said, I think there was over 20. I think He-Man got more variants than Skeletor. He-Man over 20. Yeah, and I think Skeletor maybe around 17, but... Yeah, I mean, I guess, like I said, that's just how it goes.
It doesn't need to be that way. It's the same thing with Ninja Turtles. No. You don't have to pump out all these variants. Give us one-off characters. Like, why couldn't they have, at some point, instead of doing this, be like, you know what? Even though he wasn't in he's not going to be in the show, but Four Horsemen worked on this. Here's an Icer figure or something. You know, like do different things. You don't have to.
Well, hell, like they released a Faker as a Toy Fair exclusive, knowing full well we hadn't got Faker in the show, and we never did. Other than that brief, if you blink, you miss it. Like quick, the robot that was used and fades to blue. Like I think that was deliberate, meaning that was going to be Faker, but we never actually saw Faker in action, and we got it. Hell, we got She-Ra as a Toy Fair exclusive, and was not featured in the show. So they can't say, what do you have to? I have to say now, like. We got Tila and Faker. We're not used in the show. You had no excuses of why you couldn't just give us other characters and just go down the route.
You know what shocked me? I'll tell you what shocked me, Tyler, was, we had Mossman as a mail-away exclusive, but why wasn't it not the MYP Mossman? Why did we get just the Beast Man, flocked, and with the side look, just like they did for Vintage? I was like, why didn't you make us an MYP Mossman? That one always blew my mind.
That's like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too, or they're trying to have, we're doing a new design, but we're going to be cheap, so we're just going to repackage and go the old way. Well, why didn't you go the old way into the cartoon? How much say did you have over the MYP series? That's where you kind of feel like, okay, look, or which way are you going? Are you trying to do throwback to Vintage for us? Or are you going in a different direction here? You can't have it both ways here, people. So that doesn't make much sense either. Even I didn't get to own it, and it honestly, just because Beastman's pose like that, it doesn't quite work the way it worked with the Vintage style. It just looks too much like Beastman. It's Beastman flocked, as opposed to the Vintage figure. I look at that, I'm like, that looks like a totally different character to me, even though I know it's the same sculpt. There's at least, it just looks, the posing works better as opposed to the giant ape, like with what they were going with Beastman. That does not translate well to a Mossman figure. That's just them being cheap, as we're continuing to point out how cheap they were.
It would have been great to have, an NYP, but now we could try to move into some of our department store memories. And I'm sure there should be a lot of good ones. Whoever wants to start, you can start, and people in the chat room, you can even pop up some of yours, and that could be part of, I guess, the Q&A, because I think if we went too long, we'd be doing this till like midnight. So you guys can put some of your memories in the chat while we're talking about ours, and after we're done, we can read your memories as well.
And what I have here on the screen, because I know we're talking about department store memories, but I also included the Master Universe Sears Christmas wish book images on here as well to have.
I had that fucking fantasy castle, and when I moved years and years ago to my new location, I couldn't take everything with me. I got rid of it, and I regret it, because that's cool as shit, and I think that goes pretty expensive. If you want that thing boxed, it's, I don't know, $300. I don't know if there's one loose, but I used to have that fucking thing. But go ahead, Nathan. Didn't mean to cut you off. What the hell is a Roses or Rosies, or what is that store?
Roses, man.
Well, we didn't have roses. No roses.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. I guess it's just made up then if you didn't have it.
I think Roses was more like regional with the East Coast. I don't think it ever really got beyond the East Coast.
Well, it had I think like Minnie Pearl from Hee Haw was on the commercials for us, so therefore I always thought it was a national chain.
Hold on one second.
Saying that Hee Haw, which is a southern-based show.
Nathan, what the hell is that? Summer mode activate. I'm in a block of ice. Did fucking Grimbot send that to you or something?
I don't know what you're talking about.
It looks like that looks like a Grimbot thing. And oh yeah, of course I'm up there in my underwear. All right, I just seen that.
Make sure you put stains in the underwear.
Don't give him idea. Now he's probably going to make a new one, do stains, and put that.
We need a yellow stain, and we need some skid marks thrown in there too.
Well,
like Joe wears his underwear backwards and inside out, to save the day.
Because Tyler can't see what's going on. It's basically Stratos has Joe in a headlock on the ground, and he doesn't have pants on.
Wasn't that used? I've seen it before, which I know it was like something we referenced on the show, and then he put that together, which I thought was fun to see Joe laying around in whitey tighties, being manhandled by Stratos. But make sure if you do it again, he's got to have some stains.
I've already stressed to Grim. I'm like, hey, anytime you get an idea of like Stratos beating Joe up, just send me the image, and anytime we do a mini comic, I'll just swap images out or make a slideshow out of it. We got a lot.
Good looking out.
Yeah, we got a lot going on, but
You know what some of the things that got me mad is what you're showing right here, Nathan, where it showed that fantasy figure case, and that's for any like fantasy figures. So it's a random thing to be used for like Remco stuff and knockoffs. I remember as a kid when I'd see those ads, it would kind of piss me off because at first I thought, oh, is this something new for He-Man? I was like, but what is this? Like even when I seen that castle there, I remember as a kid, I remember that. I always thought, is this going to be for He-Man? It wasn't, but I still got it. That's the cool thing about, I guess you could say about these ads. It does suck the kids in sometimes because if you didn't see it in the catalog, you'd have no desire. But when it's advertised with your favorite toy line, I guess you get tricked. There's no way I could afford that Black Star, get that Black Star castle and all that shit, though. Damn, that's some cool stuff.
The thing with these catalogs, and we talked about this a little bit last week, is I always knew where the toys were because that never changed page-wise year to year, but I would still like flip through it almost just in anticipation.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't I would grab the catalog and just like open it halfway and then go from there. I would start at the beginning. I'm like, all right, here's the boring shit, here's the clothes, here's all this stuff. And then once you started to see like I can't remember what sort of came first before the toys and the video games. I want to say it was like the battery-operated vehicles or like some of the like foosball tables and stuff like that. But once you started to see that stuff, you're like, oh, I'm getting close. I'm getting really close. And then you would flip over and it'd be that first 2 pages there that would have the most popular toys at that time. And you would just, it almost took your breath away a little bit, What are you laughing at, Joe?
You got sucked in. No, because I'm laughing because I'm thinking about the memories. I wish I had all the catalogs. When you're a kid, of course, you keep all the He-Man related magazines, anything else. But when it came to the catalogs, I guess I never thought twice. Like I'd look for about 2 months, 3 months, and you got captivated as you were drawn into a stupid fucking picture, you could say, but picturing, oh my god, my characters could battle like this. And we got rid of most of them, but I remember when Christmas time was coming, it'd always be like I think a couple months in advance, that winter catalog. Oh my god, it was just looking every time, oh, I gotta get this. I miss that shit. Like I said, I think I have one catalog left from my childhood, but damn, that's a lot. So you go ahead, Tyler. But yeah, these bring back good memories, especially seeing a lot of the accessories and other stuff they advertise too.
But those images, that's what I'm thinking of. Like I saw those as a kid. I didn't get to see the He-Man stuff because I was pretty much like whatever the current catalogs were. I did see some in kindergarten, and it blew my. I think it was from '84, I think. But just seeing the misty and epic battlegrounds that Snake Mountain was set up on the Castle Grayskull with, the moss ground and the bushes and stuff, really setting up these battle scenes like that tells you something. Like tells you, I want to see these characters fight it out. That alone should sell you on wanting those toys, and that's what I feel like kids could still, draw their attention. Like, of course, I see a lot of superhero stuff looks very bland and generic. It doesn't have a lot of impact. It doesn't really pack a punch. Where you see Spider-Man fighting Dr. Octopus, and it's like, no, it's just very generic, cheap-looking illustrations of the characters. And if it's not from some, cartoon they're watching or one of the movies, they don't have a whole lot to fall back on and see these characters depicted in such a manner. And these catalog pictures, now it's just kind of generic. What you'd see in like a Hills sales ad or Roses or Kmart, and it'd just be kind of like them sitting on like a white floor or gray tile or something like that. Here. $4.95 only this week only, and you can buy these figures, and the Roton is $8.47. Not a whole lot there, but the catalog was always about emphasizing the battle scenes a lot more. The promotional stuff that Mattel, LGN, or Hasbro would do with their lines and stuff like that. And the sales ads to me had just almost as much impact, just seeing the colorful pictures of the characters. And for me, it's Hill. I'm always going to link Hills as being the pinnacle, but Kmart is where I got my start. That's where I saw He-Man figures for the first time. It was in a big dump bin, kind of what you'd find like socks, like buying here's a thing of socks.
This shit isn't popular anymore. Fire sale.
Well, I have to say it that way because that's what we call them today. But it was a giant pile of He-Man figures. That's all I remember was this big pile. And my grandparents are like, they're there, and I'm just digging through and seeing the exploding rock and the chrome letter, and like, oh my god. I'm 3 years old, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And they helped me make a decision, and I get He-Man and Skeletor. And that Kmart in Blacksburg, which they moved locations and has since gone out of business. But I always look at that as that's where it started, and then Hills is where it continued, because I was being taken to Hills a lot around the time before my brother was born and when he was born, and buying the 86 wave and a few of the stragglers from 85 and getting, other characters as well. And of course, families like piling in with the Sydney stuff. But Hills was like that was the, that's where I got a lot of my G.I. Joes, New Adventures of He-Man. I discovered at Hills.
Kmart, I think, was mine. What's bizarre about it when you're saying this, because it was the closest to us, that's where we got the majority of Masters of the Universe stuff. But also, I'd go to the coloring book aisle, and in the coloring book aisle, there was always a new one, or a sticker book, or a stamp book. And for some reason, the memories of those books are more than the toys. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I just got fascinated with the art again, but I could clearly see me going into Kmart, going to the left, making a right, 2 down, and then I would make another left, and that was the big toy aisle. But if I'd go down the toy aisle and 2 more aisles over to the left, that's where the coloring books and stuff were. But I also would have an obsession of when I go in the stores, I liked Hot Wheels. I actually remember collecting a lot of Hot Wheels, and the only other line, because I always talk about sectors and stuff, but a memory did come up. I did get some of the real Ghostbusters figures, and I remember that being, and it was cool shit, because it was on the opposite side of He-Man, but it was down all the way towards the end. And I don't know their names because it's been a while since I looked at them. I still have them. No,
Joe, come on. I can't let that go, man.
I can't remember like I said, I had the grandma that her mouth would open and close when you popped her head. And who was the mailman? Because I still have the mailman guy.
I thought you mean you didn't know the name of the actual Ghostbusters.
No, I'm talking about the weird characters.
So, some of those secondary like scare characters, like I know, like Tombstone Tackle, the football player who bends over and his ass opens up.
I didn't have that. I vividly remember the granny, the mailman. Those are like the 2 weird ones, because I don't know if it was part of a scary line, but I was like, boy, that looks cool. So I got those, and I think something that had slime that you put something in, some kind of weird.
Oh, there's a bunch of those. They had like some that was. Okay. They were like kind of like big giant bathtubs almost. Like their mouths were so big that you can put an entire figure in there, and their mouth would like, you could put slime inside the mouth.
Can we talk about the slime? Because my parents never let me use it because my mom was terrified that it would get on the carpet and stain it. So I never got to use the slime for Ghostbusters, any of it. Turtles, Ghostbusters, Masters.
I never had access to it. I don't recall ever seeing it like to buy. It would always be in the commercials, but if I saw it, I'm quite sure. I wasn't going to be allowed to buy that. That's probably why the one time I saw the slime pit
I always wanted to.
I could always do it. I mean, I could only do it on the hardwood floor, not the carpet, because if you were doing it on the carpet, parents would freak out and they would just get stuck into it. So I did it on the hardwood, but I remember after every time I used it and it get slimed on the character, because it wasn't always in the slime pit I did it, I'd pick it up, put it back in the vat, and eventually it started getting browner and browner and dark green and just mushy shit.
And then Joe ate it.
And then because you went like, time
he
to
probably
eat. It's aged
still
well.
uses it.
It looks like brownie mix, so I can eat that.
You gotta age it 4 months like cheese and wine or something. Like this is
Joe
fantastic.
Probably still uses that slime to this day. He's probably he goes.
But Nathan, you gotta
Joe gets in the bathtub every night and he's playing with his figures and he gets the slime and he's like ha, and then he shits in the tub and a little turd floats in the water and he's like ha.
Thanks for that. I did Cobra Khan and Dragon Blaster Skeletor. What a fun! Show the other ad. I sent you an ad, Nathan. You have to get on Facebook, but this one, it's very important. I gotta let people see that one.
It's very important.
It's very important. Very important. But no, I remember having Cobra Khan and Dragon Blaster Skeletor that I did like having in the tub. I thought it was cool. And I told you Cobra Khan was my cooling off in the summer. I would use it as a spray. So I actually kept it. That is probably one of the only figures I remember taking in the neighborhood in my pocket. I'd either put it in the pocket or have it hang on my pants to where he was holding there. And he'd spray me off and cool me down. So go figure.
He's got this 5.5-inch snake hanging out of his pants.
But there were so many good ass memories, like I said. But I told you guys before, I don't think I have a single memory of Toys R Us with figures. Only video games. I don't think I ever got an action figure of Masters of the
Toys R Us. Not once.
No, not one. It was always Kmart. It was the main thing, or Hills. That's it. Never.
Yeah, I got to experience the vintage line that one time, and I mentioned it last week. And then I got to see. This was in the early '90s. I think it was the Toys R Us in Roanoke. There was a Dragon Walker on discount. I can't remember how much it was, but it blew my mind because this is well after the line had been canceled. New Adventures, it was no longer. Hey, this probably would have been '93 or something like that. My parents were still together at the time we were down there, and I remember seeing on the discount shelves, and I was immediately denied. I don't know if it was a Christmas time or just one of those things that was just too expensive, even at that time.
Even on clearance?
Even on clearance, it was. I was told I could not have it, and I remember seeing that beautiful box art and knowing what it was, and it was just shut down immediately. And then, I don't think that was. I think that was. I mean, I have other memories of buying stuff from Toys R Us, like the one in Richmond. And
what about an Ames? Somebody in the chat room, Rob Orm mentioned he went to Ames and Hills. I never had an Ames. I don't think
we had an Ames.
Well, the story behind that is that Ames bought Hills and turned all the Hill stores into Ames stores, and then a couple years later, it just all went under. So because that was sad because when that change was made, you could tell the difference immediately. Because this was very late 90s. I want to say it was 99 going into 2000. Yeah. And I
remember Movie Maniacs Series 2 was available in the Ames that me and Nathan had. And just being so disappointed in the selection that was in that store.
Yeah.
It was, and it was just, you're like, this is Hills. And there's virtually nothing in this store.
Yeah.
The snack bar is gone. The toy selection sucks. The movie section sucks. It's
the
just
snack bar. Oh my God, that's heartbreaking. I'm not going to bring up the story again, but goddamn, that's heartbreaking. Best chili in the city.
We can talk about that, but before we go further into the department store, Joe, you had me put this image up. You cared.
Yeah, for you guys that were always wondering, I put this ad up, and this is one of the Kmart ads. You can see they had some of the black and white ones. Now look above Stratos. It says, free Stratos figure just for coming in the store. Need to clear
Oh,
overstock.
see, I wasn't
Originally
even
was
reading
three-
that. Let's get this out of here. That's just him and his.
No, look
and-
at it.
Don't
and his
entertain this
Photoshop.
asshole to continue to
Yeah,
cut
it's
him
just
down.
the Joe Photoshops trying to trick everybody.
And I put it, just to let you know, I always say fake ad by Joe Amato. That's right under the less factory rebate
I wasn't even
around
paying attention.
47.
You know, you do realize, Joe, your trick, like, people are going to buy it. Unless you put it in big, red, bold lettering, these assholes are going to see it and think, oh my god, I couldn't believe this really happened back then.
Well, what's great is it had some of my Stratos haters come out that, are not a fan of them like me, and they were like, wow, they really didn't like Stratos. That thing's on clearance. I was like, no, take a closer look at that. And they're like, oh, man, you got me. So, yeah, I had to throw in one of the fake ads.
Well, I'm glad you and your one friend from Guatemala, who happens to feel the same way, that you guys had a great laugh. You know?
I'm known for my fake ads, so I had to have that be popped up. But all the rest of the ads you guys are seeing that Nathan's putting up are all 100% real.
Yeah,
Nothing's been altered.
not Joe Amato shit stained. These are authentic Sears wish book images. But when it comes to department
we haven't
stores,
touched on roses either.
Yeah,
that's something we got to.
When it comes to department stores, what was closest to me, like Roses was there. We had another store that I don't know the extent of how many stores they had or how far it stretched out, but it used to be called Hex, which I think was spelt Hects.
Yep.
So it was basically that store and Roses. Now Hills for me was a once a week trip. We went there pretty much every Saturday growing up because that was where the vast majority of like school shopping, like for clothes, took place. And I always hated that so much because Tyler, if you remember the layout of the store, it was basically
I do.
It changed a couple of times with the electronics and things, but you walk in.
I always felt the electronics stayed kind of the same, whereas the toys moved from like the center back to the over to the far side of the store.
Yeah,
I thought,
but electronics at one point, you remember it used to be like in that further like left corner. Like if you walked in the store, it'd be in the further left. Then at one point they kind of.
Oh, that's what I always remember it being, was in the far left corner.
Well, at one point they moved it sort of to the center of the store, and that's around the time when Super Mario All-Stars came out, because I remember that being demoed on the Super Nintendo and playing that a little bit. But Tyler will remember, you walk in the store, once you get past the snack bar at the entrance, you walk to the right, it's women's clothes, you go down, more clothes, and then that back right corner, that's where the kids' clothes were. So I would always, it was the worst, because I knew it would be like August, a couple of weeks before school would start. That's where we had to go first, because I always had to stay with my parents, and that's how they went. We'd go there, go to the right, mom would look at the women's clothes, then we'd go to the kids' clothes, and during that point, it's like, all right, you got to try shit on. So I would spend like 45 minutes just trying on these shitty clothes that were uncomfortable. I'm like, this sucks. Can we get
Bugle Boy, McKids.
Yeah, can we get to the toys, please? And then, you're walking down that straight stretch going through the back center of the store, and then that's when you hit the toys in that far left corner. God. But so many good memories tied to that, with not only the action figures, but Joe with Toys R Us and the video games. I had that with Hills, because they had all the kiosks. It's like, here, come try this. Here's the Virtual Boy. Here's all this stuff.
And I love the kiosk
setup.
Yeah.
And those kiosks at Hills, for whatever reason, I remember those more than the ones at Toys R Us. But yeah, the ones that were over at Hills, I think that's where I first seen Nintendo, Sega Master System, and I'm sitting there fascinated. I was like, oh my god, look at these graphics! Because I'm sitting there playing Atari and Coleco and Odyssey and anything else you could think of. I think Vectrex even came out before then.
Man.
So I had that hexagon, which is still cool. That's a cool fucking machine, because that's a...
Yeah, I would say out of all of those vintage video game systems, the Vectrex machines is the most impressive to me, like graphically.
It just was really innovative, because, first, it's just its whole machine that looks like an illuminated TV, but the controller you would pull out, you'd play, and then you could put it and snap it back up, and it was just part of the display. It was pretty cool. Even like I said, it was just vector graphics. It was, like I said, I enjoyed it. As for the toy stores themselves, the one store that I liked the most was KB. I didn't go there a lot, but when I did, it was memorable because Toys R Us was vast. Just a giant store that had so much stuff and bikes and everything. But the KB that I went to, which was it was in our local mall, it was smaller, so I don't know if all KBs were like that. But when I went in, it was just pure toys. And beyond He-Man, and then, of course, later on he came Turtle and stuff. But I remember that's where I got my model kits for Masters of the Universe from Monogram. Because I told that story before. My dad was calling me over to the other side, and I was like, why is he calling me over there? That's the model section. I hate the model section. Yeah. So I walked over like, ugh. And he was like, look at this He-Man. And he's like, look at it's He-Man. So I was like,
holy shit.
Wait a second, that is. And I did a lost it. I was like, oh my God, I'm giving him hugs and everything. And he bought all 3 for me, and we put those together, and I still have those model tracks to this day. But yeah, KB had some cool memories of unexpected stuff, especially with those models. But I think that was a fascinating. Well, go ahead.
The one thing that sticks out about KB to me is just at the entrance. They always had that little circular stand that had like various fucking battery-operated rumble things. Sometimes it would be a ferret with a fucking ball. Sometimes it would be like...
And that was a staple in the 90s, I remember. They'd always have a lot of the electronic shit out front for...
Like, who cares?
Amusement stuff.
Like, I just blow past that.
Oh, all the time. But sometimes they would have displays of action figures, which that was my experience with He-Man, is getting Faker from KB in... probably would have been 88, somewhere in 88, maybe.
Oh, you got
early
the later
89.
Release? Oh, you got that later release?
Because it was when, because I think I got Blade from a KB also, and I don't know if it was a KB at the mall or another KB, and that's when I saw Clamp Champ for the first time. Was on the back of the Faker, card back in the cross sell artwork, and had the mini comic, which I had no memory of the mini comic, but that was. I looked on the back of that card and wanted to know more about that character, which was Clamp Champ. But just seeing this instead of it was like a square with all these pegs all around it with He-Man figures all on there, and of course they were all marked down. I think judging because most figures that were marked down were at the entrance of the store, and I'm assuming they were because this was the way the line had been discontinued, and that was my and. Nathan, you remember when we had? I could have swore, and I feel like there's very few people who can remember this. In Roanoke, which is that was like the big city for us. It's an hour from us. They had 2 major malls, and Tanglewood Mall, which was the older mall, I could have swore 2 toy stores in the mall. I thought, but the one downstairs I think was a K&K Toys, which I have looked up. It wasn't like a memory of like a vague memory.
Well.
But it was a massive toy store downstairs in the mall, like in the corner, like if you walked in one. And do you remember this, Nathan?
No, see, when it comes to that area as a kid, we only went once a year. This was like the trip I look forward to the most because that's where the Toys R Us was.
Yep.
So we would go once a year. I don't know why we didn't go more often or why they didn't choose to go more often. But you actually were closer to it. Where they like lived there at one point, so you were around that more. So I don't recall that, but going to Toys R Us was the biggest deal to me. And
well, I mean, even it wasn't until like the mid '90s where we would actually go a little bit more. Like, I mean, from the late '80s and the early '90s, like Roanoke was a big deal and didn't happen that much. And we would go like around, close to birthdays and Christmas, and Mom and Dad could get ideas. But that toy store in Tanglewood Mall is where I saw the Jitsu Night Stalker 2-pack on the top shelf and the back side of the right side of the store. I just remember seeing that on the top shelf and seeing Jitsu, not knowing his name, but just knowing him. And he comes with a horse, and I of course was shut down immediately. Couldn't have it.
That's valuable. That's worth
so, that is like one of the crown jewels, even more so than the Eternia playset. Is that 2-pack?
But why? Like, was this? This seemed to have happened often. Have you already like gotten a toy while you guys were out, and then it's like, no, you can't get anything else? Why were you constantly shut down like that?
A lot of times it was, and I would tell Mom this or ask her about it. And she said a lot of times we would take you around your birthday. That way we could get ideas, or around Christmas so we could go back and get ideas.
Oh, that sucks. They're just using you as like a test. It's like, oh, well, we don't know what to get him. This makes it way easier, but we're going to torture him for the next 6 months. Sucks.
and I know because like Christmas '87 when I got all the He-Man figures, Mom said she had to go to Roanoke to get them because I remember our Kmart right over here, which used to be here. I never saw He-Man stuff there. I would see books and coloring books there, but never the action figures. And whatever at that time, Mom had to drive an hour to Roanoke to get them. I don't know if she got them at Toys R Us or wherever, but it happened. Of course, I'm looking at the 2-pack probably was, even at that time, a price item. You're getting a beast and a figure. The slime pit, when I saw it at the Family Dollar store, where it used to be down the street from where I currently live, my granny, I saw it on the top shelf. I was denied. I could not have it.
That sucks,
because it wasn't just a figure, though. We're talking about a larger item. So, there was a lot of times like that I would see stuff like that, and was told I couldn't get it. I never forgot that.
I would always get a toy. My parents would be like, okay.
Well, yeah. I may get a toy, but it wouldn't be the slime pit.
Oh,
it may be one action figure
matter.
Or something.
Like, if it was a bigger play set, sure. But I think Slime Pit would have... They probably would have been all right with that, because it wasn't like a Eternia play set or something. Like, oh, all right.
Well, no, but I don't know, because at the time I don't know what the fund situation was, and maybe when I saw my granny Slime Pit, she probably thought slime. I can't get that for him. I have no idea, and she has no memory of that. And with the 2-pack, I have no idea why my mom and dad said I couldn't.
Could
have
you see
it.
that?
I don't.
Tyler, like every Christmas, he goes to his granny. He's like, "Hey, you remember that time at Family Dollar when you denied me from getting that?" She's like, "No, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about."
Well, she still says He-Man has. I got the power. And I'm like, Granny, don't do this. All right, don't make me have to correct you. Like, I know you're trying to reminisce about what I said when I was a kid, but damn it, get it right.
For your poor grandma, you have her crying and she's in tears.
Oh no, I love to get her worked up. So she says, "Shut up, Tyler."
Oh, but good. I like that.
I give her shit all the time to work. She loves to tell me to shut up. But there was quite a few like that. Being denied the Dragon Walker, the Slime Pit, the Jitsu Night Stalker 2. Which anybody who's never heard of the Jitsu Night Stalker 2-pack, if you can even find a listing on eBay, which is a needle in a haystack, it doesn't happen that much. Even on eBay, if you can see one, you can Google search and find one. But if you look it up on eBay,
a lot of those. Oh god, those gift sets and the adventure sets, like the ones with the multiple heroic warriors or the villains, the ones that I've seen go over $20,000 for some of those. It's bonkers. And I wish I would have had more knowledge of like J.C. Penney's and some of those other weird stores that I thought, oh, that's where people shop for clothes. But the times, like that's how I found out about Elder Beerman, where sometimes I'd get stuff there too, because I would go with my mom to the mall and she would go into Elder Beerman's and we'd go up that second floor on the escalator, and way over in a corner, this itty bitty small section for He-Man or any of the toys. And I think I got a couple figures there, and that's where I kept going. That's how I told you the whole story about how I seen the catalog that showed Giganosaur, Titus, Megator, when somebody that worked there showed me the catalog. So that was like a weird place to look for things. But knowing like J.C. Penney had a little, I don't know if they're the ones that had the Hordak.
I would see that, and I always wondered about that. Our J.C. Penney and the one in Roanoke never had toy section, at least that I ever saw. I do remember seeing.
Yeah, it was off until like
because most of the time they were just clothing stores. I do remember Hess, which was right next to RKB in the late '80s, early '90s, and I remember going in there and seeing real Ghostbusters figures somewhere in that store.
I haven't thought about that store in a long. I've totally forgot about that store. Holy shit!
Oh yeah, but for the most part, it was a clothing store. But I distinctly remember seeing some of the real Ghostbusters figures in a small section there, because for the most part, those stores were just clothing. That's at least that's all it for us.
Didn't Sears was also the same way, right? Like they had a little
pretty much, but I have no memory of ever seeing any action figures in Sears ever, at least in ours or the one in Roanoke.
Even Sears and J.C. Penney and Elder Beerman, every one of them.
What about Montgomery Ward? We had a Montgomery Ward, but they never had. Because my mom had told me that we used to have one in Radford, and her best friend would go there to get toys for her kids. And
I'd get games there at Montgomery Ward's. I remember getting games. I don't remember toys. The other ones for J.C. Penney, it was like I said, it was always the escalator. In almost every one of the stores, at least around the area where I lived, was the corner. It was always put in the corner. And I think that's where Hordak and Grizzlor's 2-pack, the one that has the cool audio tape and all that, I was like, oh my God, if I would have known that was at J.C. Penney, I would have been there in a hot second to get that. Because I was never allowed Yeah, because just like you, I mean, I wasn't allowed, and plus it didn't make sense for me since I already had the figures. They would never say, "Why do you want that Battle Armor Skeletor Landshark 2-pack?" And I always thought, I don't need them. I have them, so I didn't care. But the Grizzlor and Hordak, that I would have needed because I was like, "Oh my God, there's an exclusive book, an audio tape. I need it." And that's another thing that grabs big money. And to think that John Irwin and Oppenheimer, the ones doing voices for that audio tape, is like, it felt like a lost Filmation episode just stuck onto a cassette and a book.
Let me ask you about this story, and I don't know if Nathan remembers this, but I know Val mentioned us on an episode of Roast Google like a long time ago. So I was like, okay, someone else has been to the store. It was called Best. That's all. It's all it was called, was just Best.
Yeah,
B-E-S-T.
we had Best. Yes, we had Best too.
We had one and run it for a long, and I got to go to it one time, and I remember seeing 80s toys in there, but I have no memory of it. And I remember Val on Roast Couple said he got Manny Faces there or saw it there, and I just thought, okay, that was so cool that somebody else got to experience that store in its heyday. Nathan, do you remember going to that too, or ever?
Once again, I only went there once a year, and it was just basically to Toys R Us and the malls. So yeah,
Okay.
no.
Did you ever have Cooks? What about a Cooks? Because we had a Cooks around.
Didn't have Cooks. No.
Cooks. That place is the one where I never bought He-Man stuff, but I remember always seeing, like, maybe towards the end of the line, them in clearance, and they had this big bin of all these He-Man figures clearance from, like, probably wave 6 maybe of characters, and some of the later shit, some of the maybe 5 and 6, wave 5 and 6. It seemed like they might have had a lot of overstock, because I remember just tons of figures in that bin and some vehicles. And of course, you wish you could have got them, but I was like, I already have these. And so it always to me felt like a cheaper store. So I don't know if Cooks ever had really recent new stuff. Maybe they got clearance and overstock.
Well, Big Lots was kind of like that too, because I remember seeing the weapons pack at Big Lots when it used to be next to Hills, which that was the same place that Nathan went as a kid. Hills was on top of this hill, and Big Lots was kind of like an L shape, and Big Lots was on and that's where I saw the Rock Lords toy line, and I remember seeing that weapons pack in the early, and that's probably like 1990, 91, and saying, oh my God, like a He-Man item, like I've never seen that before, and it had the cross orc on the back.
It was there that late, really? That
yeah,
late?
I vividly remember it was on the end of the aisle, like on an end cap, with just like some random stuff. But it was the only He-Man item I saw in the store. If I saw anything else, I would have my brain would have popped out of my head. But it was just
that's crazy
He-Man
to
item.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, and of course I was denied getting it.
God.
Telling it. Shit.
Yeah.
God damn.
Not to say if I don't want to paint the picture that I didn't get stuff, because my parents did buy me a lot of good stuff, but these things that I missed out on, that's what turned me into the fan that you guys hear on this podcast. It kept me hungry that I must have a Jitsu, I must get a Roboto, I have to have Mechanic and Buzz Off, and was just denied a lot of this stuff at that time because it was not either available or was told I couldn't have it, or I saw other kids had it and I couldn't have it or whatever.
So you just pull a Joe, and just when they have it in their book bag, you just go and take it.
Well, I never I didn't steal.
Oh, believe me. Well, I did have thoughts like that. I distinctly remember. Well, I had to, when I was in daycare, this kid that I still know to this day had the Jitsu Night Stalker.
Just say his name. Just say his name.
Well, his name was Ben King. You remember Amber King when we went to high school with?
Yes.
All right, her older brother Ben, in the daycare center I went to, was playing with Jitsu and Night Stalker, and I have to wonder if it was the 2-pack, and that was my first time I ever saw them in person. I just sat there in daycare, like before you got dismissed to your class, we had to meet in this room where on this big box TV, and they would play Nickelodeon in the morning, so we'd always watch Lassie or Mr. Wizard, and I'm watching him play with Jitsu and Night Stalker, and he also had the Ebor Sis Dragon from Willow, and just was in awe of that. And then in first grade, his younger brother Dusty, who died, was playing with him at a PTO meeting. And when I was in first grade, I'm sitting on the other side of the PTO meeting with my mother and watching this younger kid play with Jitsu and Night Stalker in the chair. I was so ready to walk over when we all got dismissed. Can I have your toys? To this little kid, I want his Jitsu and Night Stalker. I was like, I'm being denied again, son of a bitch.
Should have traded him like a ham sandwich or something.
I had nothing. I had nothing to offer other than I'm an older kid. Give me your toys. He was with his mother.
Boom! Just knock him up.
I'm sure Joe would have just shoved the kid down and ran off and covered his face
punch him in the groin.
Yeah,
Oh,
this kid that was much younger, But yeah, that Jitsu Night Stalker. That's another reason why those characters mean so much to me. Is that I saw them from a distance and was denied so many times, from getting to play with the badass of Jitsu and Night Stalker.
Poor kid.
And I know that Joe's probably about to wrap up and send the questions, but I do have one.
And we still didn't get to talk about roses, man.
Well, it plays into it. I have one single Masters of the Universe story that involves toys and a department store, because most of them for me was video games, Ninja Turtles, Batman, various other little toy lines that came out in between. I do remember seeing Masters. It was the same vein that Tyler talked about earlier, about seeing it like in big dump bins and they're on clearance and everything. Not like that mattered, but it was also, I was getting hand-me-downs from older cousins that were growing out of toys and starting to kiss girls at apple trees and things of that likeness.
There you go.
But this involves me learning how allowances work. So this is when New Adventures came out. So this is around 1990. I hadn't quite turned 6 yet. This was before I was going to turn 6. So I was 5 years old. We go into Rose's. I see the 2-pack with He-Man and Slushhead. And I was like, I have to have this. And I want to say the price on it was $4.99.
Wow.
And
yeah, it was buy one get one free.
Yes.
So those 2-packs were cheap.
So
yeah, that's how mine was.
It was $4.99.
So were the figures. Oh, go ahead.
And my allowance at that time was $2 a week. So this was the first week that I had gotten allowance in my life. I'm like, I have $2. I'm rich. So we go to Rose's. I find that 2-pack. I'm like, I'm buying this. And my dad's like, you don't have enough money. And I was like, what? Because I didn't quite grasp the concept yet of, hey, you have to build up to this. Because at this point, you got to think, I was used to going in a store and getting a toy. And they decided, we'll give you an allowance. And you can save that to buy this after a couple of weeks. Or find something cheaper to spend your $2 on. So that happens. I'm immediately, like, distraught. And I think this only happened a couple times as a kid, but I kind of...
He didn't cover you? He didn't give you the rest?
I kind of threw a fit. So, my mom...
Surprise! Nathan gets it. That's like the first time in his life he probably didn't get
No. I threw a fit.
Okay.
I threw a fit.
Uh-huh.
And
right.
My mom was like, oh, Jesus Christ, this again, huh? Even though
this again,
it didn't happen often, but it did, like, enough to where she...
It happened often. That's why you have every toy in fucking existence and the boxes.
Where she, like, rolled her eyes and Dad, like, jerked me up, picked me up, walked out the store, took me to the car, sat me down. He was just like, why are you crying? I'm like, I want the toy. I don't have enough money. You said I didn't have enough money. He's like, well, look, this is how this works. This toy is $4.99. He's like, you get $2 this week. And he was kind of like, teaching me addition.
Math?
Yeah, teaching
values.
Yeah. He's like, next week, he's like, you'll have $4. You'll still be $1 short. But he was like, I'll tell you what. He's like, if you're good the rest of this week, maybe if you help Mom a little bit, clean up after your toys, like help her like vacuum or something, which was another story in of itself, where I would just like essentially walk in front of her while she was pushing it to be like, I'm helping or whatever.
What a dumb kid.
Yeah, whatever, Joe. Fuck you. And then, so he's like, if you're good and you do all this, he's like, maybe I'll give you $3 next week and you can buy that. So I made it a point. I'm like, I'm going to be the best kid ever this next week. I'm not going to like say anything. I'm going to do all this. And then I got the $3 that week, went back and bought it.
And it was gone.
No, I bought it. It was there.
Oh.
That's the one that I had complete at 1 year for Christmas. I gave those to Tyler, and then last year he re-gifted them back to me because he's like, hey, you've started obtaining all this stuff with me. I want you to have these back. These need to be back in your collection. So that is my one He-Man figure story from a department store. But Rose's
I like that.
Rose's was awesome. I had a aunt that worked there at one point. She used her employee discount to get me G.I. Joe. Is it Battle of Atlantis on NES, the sequel game to the first?
Oh
G.I. Joe
yeah.
So
that was the first game that came out. Yeah,
so,
the first GI Joe game.
So I got that
Nintendo.
at a discount thanks to her. Got that for my birthday. I can't remember what year.
Huh.
I want to say I was 7 at that time, but yeah.
That sounds about right, time-wise, yeah. Rose's was a phenomenal store, much like Hills, and Turtles was big there. But I got my hardcover of He-Man Golden books. I got a couple. I think I got Tila's Secret from Kmart, but I got the River of Ruin at the one in Blacksburg, and I remember grabbing the He-Man Smells Trouble book, but it didn't have a discount sticker on it. So my mom maybe put the one that I wanted back, and the River of Ruin had a discount sticker on it. So that's the one I had to get. And I wanted it because Stinkor was on the cover. I'm like, I want that one. And being denied, it was I couldn't have it because it looked, and I'm sure it was like they were all discounted, but that one was missing the sticker, so I had to get.
Did any of this come back to you on your birthdays and Christmases, or did they just sort of forget? Were you kind of getting
all of us forget, like anything, everything that I mentioned, I never ended up getting unless I sought it out myself. Like Jitsu, Night Stalker, the Slime Pit, I had to pick those up on my own. The Battle He-Man Smells Trouble, had to pick it up on my own. I remember being denied the Ghostbusters Play-Doh set at Rose's. I remember seeing the Karate Kid tournament set with the action figure line. My mom got me Sato, which I don't know why I picked out Sato of all the characters, but I saw the tournament play set with the referee on the bottom shelf, really wanting that. I remember seeing the Toxic Crusaders there. I remember getting Toxie there at that Rose's. I remember getting the Best of Hulkamania VHS for like $5 because I had $5 back then, and like that's what I could spend on because it was a VHS you could afford. And to counter off of what Nathan said, I know what it was like to go into a department store having to wait when they were releasing the Marvel superheroes cartoons from the 80s, like Spider-Man's Amazing Friends and the Solo Spider-Man series on VHS. It was like one episode per tape. They were $10. And like I was only given $5, and my mom said you could put it on layaway and come back next week. So as a child, and had to hand over your money and hand them the movie you wanted, and walk out of that store empty-handed, that is excruciatingly painful to walk out of there with nothing. And as a kid, wait another 7 days to go back. Give me my fucking tape. Here's your $5. I want my Revenge of the Green Goblin now. And I did that several times, like for RoboCop, the cartoon, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Those employees were probably like, "Here comes that fucking bastard kid who's like angry all the time."
It was so hard to do that. It really was. I mean, those department stores, I get to heaven, like that's one of the first things I want to do is I want to relive what it's like to walk into a Hills and a KB Toys in the 80s and Rose's and a Best department store. And Kmart in the 80s and just relive what it was like to walk down that aisle. You got Thundercats, G.I. Joe, Silverhawks, He-Man, Bionic 6, Transformers, Sectars, Supernaturals. All the and play sets are on the top shelf, on the bottom shelf. Vehicles are packed in all over the place. You just go, you're like Beetlejuice, and your head just spins in circles all the time. And I just I feel like we could continue to keep talking about this so much. So, like, even not just with He-Man, but other toy lines that all of us have been into. And we try to keep this He-Man centric, but it's just...
it's hard, because there was so much stuff that we all grew up with, and going to these department stores was sometimes a daily or just weekly occurrence. Like I said before, Hills was an every Saturday thing. They would go in, get some popcorn, that they made sure not to really eat as we went through the store, because you got to savor that and come home. And it's like, where are we going to go eat today? Because that was the thing, too. We would go and eat out on the weekends. It was home-cooked meals through the week, but the weekend, hey, man, that's when we're going to Burger King. That's when we're going to McDonald's. So, like, there's going to be a Happy Meal and a toy at Hills. Are you fucking kidding me? So we're getting, like, the popcorn and the icy, which... all of those cups. It's like, oh man, when I was really into baseball, That was amazing to go in there and just get all the teams, get as many as we could every week that we went in there. And Dad would even ask him, it's like, all right, well, how much just to buy the cup? And they're like, oh, yeah, you can have it for X amount. Like, all right, we'll take this and this. So I accumulated, I still have those somewhere, just shitloads of different icy cups. And if it wasn't the teams, it was sometimes like player-centric, and it went all over the place. But that was, they just don't, it sucks. Like, for those of you that are watching that maybe missed out a little bit and it was all just the Walmart monopoly, or you have Target now, if you didn't have one of these stores near you, you really, truly missed out on just the experience. Back before it turned into a reseller's game or eBay, like, you could go in there and you could find anything most of the time. And you didn't have to worry about someone else picking it off because there were already like 6 or 7 of them already there, you know?
Yep.
Plentiful stock.
Several pegs devoted to that one toy line. I mean, I remember seeing Silverhawks on the shelf, Captain Power, and just, you know, and that's another thing that all of us, all 3 of us, and I'm sure anybody listening to this podcast, you were only given access to get a toy, but so often. Maybe you were lucky and you got a lot throughout the month or something, but for me, it was like once a week, or somebody surprised you with something, but you really didn't have opportunities that you personally could walk into a store and you had all these options and you had to make it count. You know, this is what was going to be like. This is your big prize when you go home on Saturday evening. You got this to play with. It was a big deal, and you never wanted to waste it.
It was like renting video games. You didn't want to waste that opportunity of somehow getting a shit game because you're stuck with that all weekend, and you go into Monday at school just being let down because you rented a shitty fucking game. Yeah.
Let me ask you, because I want to know if any of you guys went to this, and people listen to this. If you guys ever had this temptation, your parents decide to go out shopping on a Friday, but it's somewhere local, and then on Saturday they plan on going someplace that's even better, and they tell you that.
Oh, so you have to
don't spend your money today because we're also going there tomorrow. I'm like, oh, but they've got this right now, and I was just, it was like entrapment. We would go to Magic Mart or Kmart on Friday, and I'd be given a few bucks to play with, and just like an idiot would spend it. And we're going to Hills on Saturday, and I remember going there and seeing Triceraton on the shelf, and I'm like, well, you spent your money at Magic Mart yesterday. Like, fuck. It was just like to make fun of my mom, like, you were doing that to me on purpose, weren't you? I bet you were laughing at me all the way home from Hills, weren't you? Did any one of you guys ever go through that?
It may have happened once or twice, but it wasn't enough that it really stuck with me as I've gotten older, because it was never. Because I think in my mind, even then, when that would happen, I'm like, we're going to Hills on Saturday. Like, no, options there. I know what I'm getting.
I was like a junkie when it comes to toys and trading cards. If I saw it in person, like, I have to have it. I was not about being patient. That's why it was such a big deal to put a VHS tape that was $10 on layaway and hoping to God I could make it to the following Saturday to get it. You know, I could not imagine, like, if we walked into a Hills and I saw, you know, didn't see He-Man, but I saw something else like Violent Six or Silverhawks. I'm like, oh, I got to have that. I don't care what. And then I get to Hills and I see Blade and Star. I'm like, and my eyes start bleeding and it's Raiders of the Lost Ark all over. My face melts. I'm like, because you can't get it.
No, that never happened to me. I think I was just a smarter kid than you, even though I didn't know how. Though I didn't know how money added up.
No, I was not. You know, well, yeah, it was.
Way to go,
I know
dumbass.
My parents were great to give me allowance too. Like, it went from $5 to $7, then being taken away because we would just go batshit wanting to spend it.
So you actually just got it taken away. The only time I would ever get allowance taken away is if I was being a prick.
Nah, they were pretty good about the $5 to $7, and my mom just said, I got tired of you guys wanting to go spend your money, so I took it away. And then it was just more about like being good, and maybe we'll get something, which was the staple for a while, and until the idea of spending money was introduced.
You as a kid is like the epitome of money burning a hole in your pocket, as they like to say.
And sometimes not much has changed.
Yeah.
Because when I get paid, I'm like, now I can get comics and action figures, and I buy one. Like, oh my god, I can't buy anything till next month halfway through.
Tyler does that all the time. He's like, I spent all my money. I got rent next week. Fuck, did it to me again.
And it's like, oh my god, like, Christmas is here. I wanted to buy this. I wanted to buy that. Well, maybe if I cut corners here and there, I try to pull a Joe on. I'm like, I'm still poor.
I mean, you just got to start eating those ramen noodles, man.
Ramen noodles, yeah. It's just like, it sucks, but it's just part of life. You can't have everything you want. Just like as a kid, you can't have it all.
Right.
Joe, we're not giving you time to talk here, Joe. Well, you should have been
interrupted. Joe's ready to just wrap it up, I think. Come on.
Yeah, Joe's got to take a shit.
He needs to play the Oscar music to, hey, get off the stage.
Yeah.
I like hearing the memories. And there's probably a lot I'll miss, but as for the questions, I'm not going to do questions. I was just going to read if there was any memories in the chat room.
No, there's a good question, Joe. Don't you deny me a good question now?
If you guys want to ask questions, too, go for it. A lot of it had to do with...
Unless it's stupid.
Well, I did mention I wanted them to say memories, too. So we got Adam Gabbard. He said when his aunt visited him when he was a kid, she let him have 2 vintage Masters of the Universe figures of his choice from JCPenney's. He said he picked Flying Fist He-Man and Terraclaw's Skeletor. So,
excellent choices.
Both awesome fucking figures. Chris Paulson said, I used to go to Myers and Hills to get my Masters of the Universe stuff back in the 80s in Michigan. He said he used to love Hills because they had a massive amount of Masters of the Universe and LJN wrestlers. So, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, LJN wrestlers, man. God.
What
a feeling.
The LJN ring though was quite cheap because it was very prone to just like splintering and just breaking in the center. Not like because
all the wrestlers were like large bricks, so dropping them for body slams on the thing, you're like bang.
Yeah. Because that happened with mine. It started to crack in the center. And,
mine too.
I don't even know if I still have it or because of that break in there that my parents were like, we should probably toss this. I do have the WCW Galoob ring and most of those figures. So
yeah,
way more sturdier because WCW was better anyway. But I digress.
Papa Hood 69 said he misses Ames and Hills. He said those were good stores. He said who needed them all when you had those 2 stores.
Exactly.
Like I said, had Hills. I don't, like I said, just didn't have Ames. Jason Havlick said he remembers going to Toy Park and buying Jackalman as his first Thundercat figure. I don't think I had a Toy Park.
Yeah, we didn't either, but just knowing Jackalman was your first purchase, badass, dude.
Hey, could you guys hold on?
Sure.
No.
And there goes the tablet.
Okay, well, I hope to God it was nothing serious.
Yeah,
Joe
hopefully everything is okay on that front. But if you guys do have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat because I got the chat up. I'll look at this and find any questions that we have. But
that was cool to hear your story about Slushhead and He-Man. I had no idea the backstory.
I never told you that before?
No, you never told me that.
Oh, that's interesting. Because that's how it happened. And I actually looked up that 2-pack just to see the image, and it's exactly how I remember it.
Yeah, and those 2-packs are not cheap on eBay either.
Yeah.
There's 3 2-packs.
I know, as crazy as that is, that's how I obtained those 2 figures.
Yeah, that was such a big deal. And I got He-Man and Skeletor at Hills. Joe, you all right?
He doesn't have his earbuds in yet.
Oh. That's when you should play the sound effect that you had the audio of Joe from last week.
Oh, yeah. I meant to work with that and get that in there. Everything good?
Yeah. Nathan, if you'd be able to take over. I mean, everything's okay. Just want to let you know everything's okay. But I'm gonna get off here.
Yeah.
Everything's all right though. Just want to let you know if you guys can continue, please do. But yeah, I have to go.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
you're
sorry.
fine.
No, you're fine, dude. Do what you got to do, bud.
All right. See you guys.
See you.
All right.
All right. Well, I will adjust your camera. This kind of happens every now and again. Hasn't happened for a while, but shit happens.
No.
So
but we will press on here.
We will do that. Let me go ahead and get a static image to put over top of this, so it just doesn't look like him doing that. But yeah, if you guys got questions, go ahead and throw them out there. Tyler, is there anything you want to say in closing? I know we were talking more about department stores. If there's anything else that you wanted to throw out at us. Any other stories?
I mean, I think about those times a lot because, like a lot of us, you know, I'm fixated on the 80s and the early 90s because those times were, you know, I bring them up to my parents. They just saw it as just doing what good parents would do, and to me, those are magical moments, and I reflect on those. God, more than I can explain, really. The smells, the sights, the visuals, that anticipation of walking or looking for that aisle, even if at Christmas time or birthday, you know. And as we're doing this, we're approaching Christmas, and you know, you're being told, hey, what do you want? And you try to find joy in like looking at stuff and like, oh, it'd be awesome to have that, and then you can't have it because you got to wait for Santa to bring it to you and stuff like that, and various other opportunities to try and get the stuff. But you know, Hills, Roses, Kmart, KB Toys, you know, and I've heard of like various other toy stores over the years, and various other outlets like on Google or other podcasts will mention it too. And it's awesome to know that, you know, not just me grew up, you know, as a teenager and as an adult reflecting on the stuff, thinking I was the only one that would ever reminisce about going to Toys R Us and deciding whether or not to get Beastman or Jackalman. You know, that Nathan was going through his ordeals, you know, not too far from me, of, you know, getting the He-Man Slush Head 2-pack, or, you know, getting G.I. Joes. You know, all of us listening to this podcast went through this at some point or another, a variety of times, maybe once or twice. Maybe you had it easier than the rest of us. Maybe you had it harder than the rest of us. But we all got to experience going into these stores and having these routines that we did with our parents or aunts, uncles, grandparents, friends of the family, you know, whatever it may be, of going to these stores, the sights, the smells, of being dragged to look at clothes for the longest time.
That was
with
the
your
worst.
Parents, it was a staple. And I make fun of my mom to this day because she'd always be on. All right, you need to make a decision about getting something. Hurry, and like, well, you're being dragged from this store to this store to that store to this store. And you have to be patient, otherwise you don't get anything. And you be patient, you play the game, and then when you get to when it's your time, you gotta hurry up.
No, I never had that because I think my dad, I think, liked looking around at that stuff too. So there was never any sort of time limit on it. Plus, we weren't going to multiple stores either. When we would go to Hills, we were going to Hills.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anything
and we would do that too, but I could not go there to the toy aisle by myself. If Mom wanted to look at stuff, we had to stay by her, let her look at the clothes or this or the homeware stuff, and then at the end we get to go down there, and of course, and maybe we were taking too long, but it didn't happen every time, but it happened often enough where you often felt like you were being rushed to make a decision. You're like, this is important, Mom. Don't you understand? This is what I have to choose from. You can't make me decide right here on the spot. I need time to think. The playtime. This character looks better than this one, but his play feature is really cool. You know, and I have a few memories too of getting a figure, getting it home, and realizing my brother had picked a better choice than I did.
And then you would try to be like, "Hey, man, you don't want that. You want to trade?"
I would try to trade him.
Oh, what a dick!
And it wouldn't work. You know, I remember getting Leatherhead from Turtles, and he got Usagi Yojimbo, and I'm like, "Oh, Leatherhead, awesome! This is going to be awesome!" And then we get home, and the play value is lacking compared to Usagi. I'm like,
Leatherhead and vintage Turtles just not what you want it to be. You can't do a lot with that figure. And
it's a great looking figure, but at that time, and we got him. I think I got him from Walmart, and when it was the small Walmart, and Derek, I just seen how much fun he was having with Usagi. And I remember when the Marvel Superheroes that Toy Biz did in the early 90s, in late 89 to like 92 or 91, I got Mr. Fantastic, and because you extend him and he looks like he stretches, and Derek got Thor. And we get home, like Thor's like big and muscular with his, you know, Mjolnir, and like Mr. Fantastic just stretches and like, I did it again. Derek, you want to trade?
No.
Didn't quite work. So that was another incident of like thinking you're gonna get this great toy and you get home and like, oh, this is not as cool as I thought.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh,
perks
God.
of being an only child, you never have to worry about that kind of thing in terms of like someone else getting a better toy because you were just stuck with what you got. Which oftentimes than not, when I went through that, I was never felt disappointed by my choice.
No, I mean, there were very few occasions like, you know, I never was, I mean, every He-Man figure I was desperate to have. It didn't care who it was. I was like, I'm all about it. Thundercats, G.I. Joe, very few, I can't think of a single G.I. Joe, even if looking back at hindsight, you know, not a great character, but I was always excited with every G.I. Joe I got, whether it was a member of the Joe team or a member of Cobra. I never had a bad experience getting a Joe or a Ninja Turtle, unless they smelt funny. You know, I remember getting Pandacon and it smelt terrible. Like the plastic that he was made out of just smelt horrible, and just being kind of like, oh God. But I never had a bad experience with anything He-Man related. Like it didn't care what it was. Such a junkie for it. But in wrapping things up, it was. We really could. We could have just devoted the whole episode to department stores.
We really could have, just to go back and forth and start to like drudge up different memories, because that was a better time, because we have Target now, but Walmart really, and
the stores and the shelves stay empty even when it's not Christmas time.
No,
the distribution is so shitty.
Yeah. So what changed between now and then? I wish we could just go back to those times in terms of distribution and full shelves and not having to worry about scalpers and all that stuff. There was one question here from Sportimus, because most other people are kind of talking about their memories and like Joe Lee and Joe leaving, kind of like they were like, okay. Sportimus says, do you have a figure that you were surprised to see for the first time at a store or has some special sentimental value to it? Mine is getting Trapjaw. It was the first Motu and just a cool cyborg villain. So anything stick out to you?
Oh, wow.
That you haven't already touched on.
I mean, gosh, with He-Man, getting He-Man and Skeletor was such I just remember I lost the weapons the day that I got home with them. Like my grandparents got me back to their place and I lost all the weapons. My entire childhood I had no power sword. I did have a Havoc staff for a little while, but that was about it. But I was so enamored with those figures and Cyclone especially. But it always comes back to Christmas of '87, and since we are approaching Christmas, that Christmas was the first experience I had with like understanding what Santa Claus was about, and getting Hordak, Cobra Khan, Spycore, Whiplash, and Fisto under the tree with all four Ghostbusters, and the plush Marshmallow Man and Ecto 1, and seeing those 5 He-Man figures, opening them up, like seeing the exploding red rock and those characters. I had never seen any of those characters before. Like I was not aware of any of them. So seeing Hordak, that was the first time. Cobra Khan, that was the first time. Same thing with Fisto, Whiplash, and Spycore. And it was, 3-year-old me was just, it was indescribable. And opening them up, looking at the card art on the back, and looking at all the mini comics that they all came. That's when I got Clash of Orange for the first time. And the Hordak mini comic was that Christmas. And I'll never forget it. That impression of these amazing villains and this one hero that I got. And it was just amazing. But I felt that way about pretty much damn near every He-Man figure. When that same year I got Stinkor, and for my 4th birthday I got Too Bad, Leech and Mantenna, and was just, I can't name just one because they all had that same impact that you said about Trapjaw. I had that about every figure because every hero and villain had that much of an impression on me, because that's how much I love this fucking line. I have such passion for. How about you?
I think mine would, and I can't even remember what year Christmas this was, and this kind of spawned from Febmon. Was it? No, it was Sportimus that said, "What was your epic childhood Christmas haul?" Mine would have to be the year I got like all the turtle stuff. Like I got the turtle van, the sewer playset, and it just. Opening all that stuff up, and there was also the year that I got the Ghostbusters. I want to say I was 4 when I got the Ghostbuster stuff, and there's a picture of me opening up Ecto 1, and my face is just like, I like just couldn't believe it. So there were a lot of memories like that early on as a kid when I got my Nintendo for Christmas '89 and getting the Ninja Turtle game, Dick Tracy game, and Batman. I was just like, oh wow. And then you get Mario Duck Hunt. So like my dad wanted to play Duck Hunt, and I have all those memories of playing Super Mario Brothers with my dad and him trying to help me figure out Dick Tracy because the controls on that are kind of confusing. You have to press select.
They suck.
You have to press select to get out of the cop car, and a lot of people didn't know that, but we figured that out.
I didn't.
And my dad had a notepad where he's like writing down the clues and things that we would need, because if you interrogate the wrong person and try to arrest them, then it's like game over and everything. So like lots of memories building with that, with him like teaching me essentially how to play video games, even though he never really played video games at all, like prior to that. No Atari, no Intellivision, none of that stuff. So him learning that with me was a lot of fun. And then just those Christmas.
I'm staying in the room, but don't
okay.
lose your.
Everybody's leaving me. I just do the show by myself.
No, I was grabbing something to capitalize on our conversation here.
But just a lot of that stuff, especially with Turtles, opening all of that up, and some of it wasn't even wrapped. It's like Santa brought it, and you're going.
Yes, that was how it was with my He-Man stuff from '87. It was all under the tree, like right there.
Yeah.
Boom! Here it is.
So you wake up, you're groggy, you're like half asleep, but you're excited, and you walk through, and like they have the lights on, so it's brighter than there than usual, and like Dad's taking pictures, so the flash is hitting you too, and you're just like trying to get a hold of yourself, but you hone in on that Christmas tree, and you see all that unwrapped stuff that Santa brought, and you're just like, oh man, holy shit, and you go and you pick that up, and you're like, oh wow, look at this, and then you go and start unwrapping things, and those things go with that, and you're like, oh my god, and you're just losing your mind. Your tiny brain just explodes.
Oh god, because the one Christmas that was like real. I mean, like I think it would have been '89. That was the heavy turtle centric Christmas that me and my brother both had, because I got it. I was given Raphael for Christmas in '88, so from there to '89, it was an explosion of turtle passion, and that was the year that we got Turtles were all underneath the tree. That and the Batman movie book, but it was pretty much turtle figures and turtle vehicles all underneath the tree, all from Santa.
Yeah. Well, the one, another one that sticks out to me now that you said like Batman, what I got from Santa one year was the battery operated Batmobile. Lost my mind as a kid. Hopped in that thing. Like my dad, I think I told this on Beyond Retro. My dad made me, like out of cardboard and fabric, made me my own cowl. And I already had like the utility belt, and he made me a cape. So I saw that, we unboxed it. I immediately run to my room, put all that shit on, because I had Batman pajamas on as well. That like, it was like the blue and black, but it had like the symbol on it still. So yeah, had the cowl, had the cape, utility belt, even the like the gun from the toy line. Yeah, took that to go with my utility belt, and I like. I should have got this picture, because that would have been perfect.
I've seen it, because I've seen the picture. You showed it.
I should have actually. I think it's on Facebook. I can find that and save it and put it on there. I'll show you guys that. One thing in the chat room, Adam Gabbert has Tyler. He sent you a Christmas card, but it's coming to me. So when it gets to me, I'll give that to you. So you'll have that as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, bud.
Yeah, this is like super extra long. I'll show this image. We'll go ahead and go through the wrap-up stuff, and then
I'll share this real quick, because I found this was like 80, probably 80, maybe early 88, maybe. But that's my 4th birthday. My papa was laying down, and I'm looking at Leech.
That's awesome,
right there. Yeah, and that's the same year I got Montana and Two Bad at the same time. So that was that whole stretch. It was just I got Grizzlord at a flea market. I got the He-Man Golden Book VHS. It was just. My fan was all about piling on the He-Man stuff. They just knew I was such a nut for He-Man.
Actually,
and I have a few of these pictures still laying around, but it's I had them in the room, and it's fun to reminisce about like the excitement.
I'll show you guys this one. This isn't the Batman one yet. I'll find that one as well. But here is the picture I was talking about earlier with me opening Ecto 1. We have our Alvin and the Chipmunks wrapping paper going on right here. So that's me like being really super stoked about the Ecto 1. You even see like the Winston figure right there on the ground because I had already opened up all those too. I also got the Firehouse playset. So I got all this stuff. So it was kind of amazing having that there. Let me try to find that Batman battery powered vehicle real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. So that's the only picture that exists, right, of you opening something Masters related?
There are pictures of me from that Christmas of '87, which I held. Like there was one of me, like in a white T-shirt, and my little underwear, like kneeling down by the tree and picking up the He-Man figures. Yeah. I have misplaced it. It's hard to say. And then there's another one. I'm like holding open a Ghostbusters calendar that I got that year, and there's some stuff by that tree. And then I have, I've got some other pictures of me as a child wearing He-Man stuff. But the Christmas pictures of He-Man, I do have a picture of me from the Christmas Eve from that year, and I'm wearing a Garfield sweater and wearing the cowboy 6-shooter guns that I was given, and I have my Commando from Arnold, the 6-inch Commando figure, and Chuck Norris figures from the Karate Commando toy line. That's what I was given Christmas Eve, the night before I got all the He-Man and Ghostbusters stuff. Nice. So it was all about big muscular super heroes just kicking ass all over the place. Man, it was a year to never be forgotten. That was also the same year my mom recorded Frosty, Charlie Brown Christmas Special, the Garfield Christmas Special, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and Will Benton's Claymation Christmas. So I have that transferred to DVD of the cartoons from '87. So '87 was a pivotal year for me. It really was. I mean, I was into Thundercats. I didn't get into G.I. Joe till '88, but it was just that year we'll keep this podcast if I keep going.
I put the image up here. It's been up here for a couple minutes while.
I can't see it, so I just have to...
you can see here in the left corner, I got my Turtles book bag hanging on the doorknob because that was like the book bag I had at the time. There I am sitting in the Batmobile, and behind me we got like the floor model wood panel TV with the VCR on top. It's pure nostalgia. It's fantastic. It's amazing, and there's the homemade bat suit that I had thanks to my dad. So yeah, good times, man. I wish Christmas could be like that again.
That's why I get so kind of bummed out about Christmas now. Like not so much this year, but it's not the same. And even though getting stuff from my nephew is fun, but that lack of excitement in general, man, I'm thankful to have experienced it than to never have, because right. I know there's a shitload of kids out there who did not get a quarter of what you and I and others got to experience. But it's something I pine for all the time, and and there's been some times as an adult, that I have gotten some fun memories, and some of it's He-Man based, which has been really special. But that explosion of emotion to walk to that tree and see that Santa Claus had been there and he knew you liked this, or that he thought you would like this. I mean, I get so mad when I hear about anybody who has ruined the magic of Christmas for kids and Santa Claus and the mythology of the reindeer, the North Pole, and getting down the chimney because some asshole in your family or some prick at school decides to say certain things and ruin that magic. I mean, it's magical to think that Santa Claus brought me He-Man toys and Ninja Turtles and Batman stuff and Spider-Man stuff. Whatever I was into, he delivered. And it was so much fun to think that he thought of you that way and brought those toys for you to wake up and you got to experience all that with the Turtles and Ghostbusters and Batman, and all of you listen to this podcast got to experience it with whatever your Transformers, G.I. Joe, Brave Star, whatever it might be, obviously He-Man. It's I think it's great that all of us listening to this really got to have a memory or many memories of Santa Claus being good to all of us, and thinking about it and talking about it with your family or your friends or sharing in the chat room, or it's that's part of the magic of this toy line of what we're talking about today, is that it has such a major impact on all of us in various times of our lives. So anybody who wants to say I'm an angry, bitter, unemotional asshole who doesn't, I'm like, there's so many layers to this angry podcaster that's on here with, the super nice Joe and the naughty and neutral Nathan Kennedy. It's a passion that runs deep, and I think a lot of people thought I would grow out of this passion. I'm proud to say I've never gotten close to it, and I don't intend on ever leaving this passion behind me until I'm dead. And then hopefully in the afterlife, I'll be experiencing He-Man in a way I've never been able to.
Here's an Eternia playset.
So, here's an Eternia playset, and I actually had 2 dreams about He-Man last weekend where I was actually running from the Blade and Sauron and Beastman because they were after a baby they were on Earth and tearing up a library, looking for this child, and I see them tearing it up, and I'm like, I'm with He-Man, and I was like, they're after the baby. We got to stop. And I remember shooting Sauron, and then being cast in another dream, and I'm playing He-Man in this Hollywood production of He-Man the movie, but it's in a high school gymnasium, and celebrities are showing up to watch it, and they're coming and acknowledging me, and they can't wait to see me in the role of He-Man. I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to forget my lines. I'm made a fool out of myself.
What a weird dream.
I meant to share that last week, but it was in the same night, back to back, 2 consecutive He-Man dreams based around the live action movie. I think it means it's destiny.
No,
I'm destined to play He-Man in a live action film.
It's not going to happen. If it happens, I'm going to boycott the movie. I'm going to show up to the studio.
Of course,
I'm going to show up when they're filming it. I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you ruining this? Please. All right.
And I'm saying, I don't know who this guy is. Get him off my set.
You're not blonde Tom Cruise yet, sir.
No, not quite.
Yeah, just the AIM name. But we will go ahead and wrap up the extra long episode. We haven't done one of these in quite a long time where it's extended past the 2-hour mark, but here we are. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like, subscribe, give that a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. If you guys haven't done this before in the chat, during this, leave a comment after the fact. Anyone watching this after the fact, please leave a comment. Give us some of your Christmas memories, any of your department store memories, any of that stuff. Check out the links down below. You can find us on Anchor, Podbean. Go download Tyler's Leech mini comic. There we go. Mix that up. Hit Joe up for a custom. Buy one of his t-shirts that we already plugged at the beginning of the show. And until next time, have a powerful day.
By the way, I faked every orgasm. You're probably not going to know that one. Even though you like this film.
That sounds really, 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 really familiar, though. I won't do Joe and give the 30-second. Can you give me a hint?
Let's see. The person who says this line says it to Priscilla Presley.
Oh, Naked Gun?
Yeah, first one.
Go. Boom, and Grim 2 pops in with Naked Gun at the same time.
Yep, Naked Gun. It was either it could be that or Buzz Off Butter Cheeks, which was from the third Naked Gun. That was the other chord I had in mind. So, but hope everyone enjoyed our Christmas edition, which was semi-Christmas.
Yeah. I know that there were talks of doing the Christmas special, but you guys have already done that a couple years ago. You didn't want to sit through it again, more or less.
Honestly, after I said it, I was like, I don't know if I really want to sit through this. It's just not as much fun to sit through. It's only 45 minutes. It's a short thing, but I'm like.
I get it. I feel like we benefited more from doing this over that anyway.
Well, yeah, and I feel like next year for Christmas we'll do something else. Maybe we'll have to revisit a commentary that no one gave a shit about, like the Ice Age Comet. That we did that, nobody cared. Or revisit the commercials, which is not really Christmas related, but we did that around Christmas a few years ago. No one cared.
You don't have to get on that high horse again. We'll see you next week.
No.